All right, good evening. Welcome to tonight's study session of the Sumner County School Board for August 5th. Before we begin, I'm going to stand for a moment of silence, followed by a pledge to our flag. Feel free to join me if you'd like. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I call to order the August 5th, 2025 study session for the Sumner County School Board. First item on the agenda is discussion regarding policy 1.108, nepotism and fraternization. Mr. King.
Yeah, so you all should be getting a copy of a policy revision draft that I updated, and just wanted to bring that to the board for consideration. The green, the language that's highlighted in green is the new addition to our current policy. And the first two paragraphs in green, that's language from the TSBA, their recommended policy on this, on nepotism. And the rest of it, the other two highlighted green sections are a little bit more in line with Tennessee code. And I emailed you all excerpts from Tennessee code. And I'll just share a couple of those. One, primarily when we're looking at nepotism, the state policy is expressed in Tennessee Code 831-103. It says that no state employees who are relatives shall be placed within the same direct line of supervision, whereby one relative is responsible for supervising the job performance or work activities of another relative. So I have that in the language there. You can see third paragraph down, no person shall supervise or be supervised by an employee if he or she is related to the employee. And then therefore, and then I have, this was the language that was there, a relative providing services to the board shall not be placed within the immediate line of supervision or in the same workstation. So that just tightens up that alignment with state code. Also, the employee handbook has that same language, and I just thought, well, if it's in the employee handbook, maybe we should add it to our policy. The employee handbook has a section on relatives in the workplace, and I quote, it says, relatives and domestic partners may be hired by Sumner County Schools if the persons concerned will not work in a direct supervisory relationship and the employment will not pose difficulties for supervision, security, safety, or morale. And along those lines, I'll just share a couple other, this is from CTAS, County Technical, and they say the same thing on this issue of hiring relatives in the workplace. And they say the state's policy does not absolutely prohibit relatives from working within the same governmental entity, but it does prohibit relatives from being placed within the direct line of authority whereby one relative is responsible for supervising the job performance or work activities of another relative. It goes on to say, if two or more relatives are or become within the same line of direct supervision by marriage or promotion, the director of schools must attempt to resolve the situation by transferring one of the employees, and if that fails, must devise an alternative evaluation plan. State law does allow for an exception. It does allow for exceptions. So, and this is in your email, I shared this with you. This is 49.2, 2C. If two or more employees or relatives are within the same direct line of supervision or become within the same direct line of supervision by marriage or promotion, then the director of schools shall attempt to resolve this issue by transfer of one of the employees. If the director finds that transfer is not feasible or is not in the best interest of students, then an alternative evaluation plan shall be devised for one of the employees. So that CTAS quotes that. And I don't really need to quote this one. This is the Tennessee Department of Human Resources. They also have the same language. Basically, the law is you can't have relatives in a direct line of supervision, okay? And if that should arise, then number one, there should be an attempt to transfer, and then if that's not feasible, then there needs to be an exception. And so I put that in here. If you look on the second page, it says at the top there, as a general rule, family members will not be assigned to the same school or location. Any exceptions must be requested and approved by the director of schools prior to any position being offered or any paperwork being submitted for processing by the human resources or payroll departments. This is the new addition. This is what I've added. Any exception and the justification thereof must be documented and presented to the board along with any alternative evaluation plans. So my thinking on that is, well, first of all, you see in there it says any alternative evaluation plans. That's coming right out of the statute that is required for any exception. And then again, I think number two, it just, I think there needs to be justification that is expressed to the board, and it needs to be documented. I mean, if we're hiring relatives, I don't know about you, but some of my relatives, I may not end up in the best of relationships with. I'm just saying there's potential for anything to go wrong there. What if a married couple is working together and suddenly they're going through a divorce, and they don't want one spouse doesn't like the evaluation the other spouse gave. Anyway, I'm thinking for liability reasons there needs to be some documented. The reason for the exception, I think, needs to be documented. What if they're not getting along with another employee? Any contingency could come up. So I think it needs to be documented. I think it needs to be presented to the board along with an alternative evaluation plan. And so, to be compliant with the law, I feel like if a situation comes up where an exception has to be made that would allow for relatives in the workplace in a supervisory situation, then it's my understanding that has to be broken up. They can be allowed to work together, but there would have to be some kind of alternative. The relative cannot evaluate or supervise the job performance of the other relative. So I feel like this new language in here deals with that issue. A couple other things, just I'll go back to what the TSBA recommends. This is right out of state law as well, out of Tennessee Code, where 49.2.202 says that each member of the Board of Education who has a relative employed by the board shall declare such relationship prior to voting on any matter of business that shall have an effect upon the employment of the relative. In making that declaration, such board member shall certify that the vote that is about to be cast on the pending matter is in the best interest of the school system. So that's that second highlighted paragraph there. The TSBA recommends adding that into the policy. And then the top paragraph from the TSBA, same statute. It says the director of schools of a county school system shall also give notice to the county school board each time there is intent to employ a relative of an elected county official. So all of this, those paragraphs are lifted primarily or summarized right out of Tennessee Code from the TSBA. That's their recommendation. So That's it. That's what I have. If anybody, oh, one other thing. I struck this language there, and now I'm starting to have doubts about that. And so, because it says a board member shall, I struck this. I struck a board, quote, a board member shall excuse himself or herself from voting on any person's employment who is a relative of that board member. And at first I thought that was somehow connected to the previous paragraph, but now that I'm thinking about it, maybe you all can provide feedback on this and provide some discussion on this. We vote on the employment of the director and I believe maybe the attorney. So I'm not sure if that needs to be struck. If there should ever arise a situation where a board member is going to vote for the director of schools and that director of schools is a relative, I feel like maybe this language ought to stay. So that was another thought I had. And so anyway, if you haven't looked through this, if you haven't looked over this, if you haven't taken some time to look at the statutes that I've sent and shared, please do. And I'd welcome any questions or any discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, and remember this study session, so board policy is that we'll have at least 2 study sessions before a final vote. So if you have questions, one of the things I would encourage is, especially if it's around TSBA or law, go ahead and send those questions to us. We might not be able to have all the answers tonight, but if you'll email those questions to Dr. Langford or Jeremy, we can make sure that our board attorney answers any questions and gets that information back to us. As we continue to dig into this policy a little bit. Mr. Lancaster.
Yeah, first of all, I have a couple questions just trying to figure out. So the addition of uncle, aunt, nephew, and niece, is that TSBA? Is that state law?
Yeah. That's from that's from Tennessee Code. So that just 49.2.202, it has everything that we have, but it also has uncle, aunt, nephew, niece.
Because the rest of that sentence says, or any other family member who resides in the same household, which, I don't know, the way I read that is like, it's somebody in the household, so it's uncle, aunt, nephew, or niece in the household.
Okay.
Anyway.
I inserted that.
Plus you get the fact, I mean, when you get down to uncle, aunt, nephew, I mean, that could be, that broadens it a lot.
Yeah.
Not that, I mean, I got uncles that I don't even know, or aunts and great uncles and aunts I wouldn't even know. They I'm just saying, especially nephews and nieces, stuff like that. And especially when we bring in the second part. And the reason I ask that is I understand, like, hey, if it's in the same household, like the new green paragraph under policy kind of makes sense. But if you're expanding that out to uncle and nephew and niece, and then expanding that out to 24 commissioners, the 11 of us, is an administrator in the system, would that be principal level, or where's that? I think we might need to define, if we decide to go with, changing this language, I mean, there definitely might need to define some of those roles, like where that line is. Because you're quickly getting to 50 or 60 people within the county, and then broaden it out to aunts, uncles, nephews, nieces. It gets, almost everybody we hire is going to likely fall in that list. Not trying to take away from what we're trying to do. I just think when you expand that out, it might need some clarification there. And then the other piece, and again, are these statute, or is this interpretation of statute? And it's when we talk about recusing ourselves, for lack of a better term, on a vote, the way this is worded, I understand, like, for example, my wife has started substitute teaching from time to time. So she's technically an employee of Sumner County Schools. I can see where, hey, if we're voting on any change to the sub pay rate, any change to any kind of substitute policy, that I'd be like, hey, my wife's a sub, I'm voting on this. But if it's things that are indirectly impact her, that's, is that what that's saying? Because the way it reads is like, hey, this policy could impact, an employee in the school system indirectly, but not directly. I'm just asking, what is the statute read, or how do you interpret that?
Well, I'll answer that. I think we could probably ask our board attorney for clarity. I mean,
Yeah. I just
we
think
may be
there's-
guessing a little bit, and I don't want to be incorrect, so let's just add that to the list, ask the board attorney specifically what that's related to.
Those are something that,
I would say, just Mr. Lancaster, just to your point, that when you start getting down to aunts and uncles, you're the largest employer in the county, and education, is a job where a lot of family tends to fall into that those jobs, whether it's working in the cafeteria, whether it's a substitute, whether it's as a teacher, a librarian, administrator. It just happens to be something that a lot of families tend to navigate towards, and you see it throughout their entire family tree. So that may be something that we want to look at as far as being a little bit more specific and clarifying how far down that tree do you want to go. And we are in the South, so we all have a lot of uncles and aunts and cousins and things that we may not know about. So good point. So Mr. Evans.
Because obviously, just to be bluntly honest, obviously the second paragraph of the policy directly does. I know I'm one of the only. I think Michelle Lacey might have. She don't work for anyone. Obviously, my wife and my sister-in-law work for the city, or for the school system. So, can I get like a text box whenever I'm talking here that says Wade Evans, District 4, wife and sister-in-law work for the school? I get it. The chances of what I don't want to happen is I accidentally don't say it in here, and then what does that do? Does that void my vote? Does that I just think it's real. Like I said, we have a lot of us have people related to us or involved in the school system. Because to be frank with you, I think I've said it almost every time, but I'm not sure I've said it every time I've been here. So.
Well, and I think that's where we can get some clarification as well.
Yeah, I don't want to put something that's so finite in writing that I'm sitting here the entire time making sure I said it to everything we're voting on. Personally, because this is something direct that does impact me. One thing I do actually like on here about but I would ask, it's the second one where you say an exception and justification document presented to the board. My thought is it doesn't need to go to the board, it needs to go to HR, but I do think it's with the alternative plans, that needs to go to HR. The reason why I say that is I think that's something where we're getting into making decisions about personnel rather than policy. I think I like asking for extra documentation. I think that's actually having alternative plans, making sure they do that, and because then we can actually ask for that from a request perspective. But I don't think that we should sit up here and review those in here. That should go to HR first. So that's my two things.
And I also think you run into an issue if the board has to approve or review all of these hires, especially when you start getting into your months of May, June, July, when you're starting to fill schools and you've got 2 meetings or 1 meeting. What meeting does that have to go in front of? And if somebody has to wait to make that offer, accept an offer, does somebody look in a different direction? So just things to think about as we're thinking about the policy. Ms. Purdy?
So I listened to the last meeting. I was at a family funeral, but I thought you had some really good points. Like we needed clarity in the policy. So I actually put together something similar. And I think it's just a simpler version to get to the same point. And that simple version is just taking directly from the statute that if the director finds that a transfer is not feasible or not in the best interest of students, then an alternative evaluation plan shall be devised for one of the employees. I think one of the things that that we want is those families who are teaching dynasties, right? The families that everyone is passionate about what they're doing, and it doesn't make sense for me to have this first paragraph here that we need to report every new employee that's a relative. One, you're right, that'll take a very long time, but also does that start to create a stigma around your name's going to be brought up in the board meeting if you're a new employee in a negative way. I just think that goes beyond our purview around policy. It creates a negative connotation around having family members in the school system, and I think we do want those families who teaching is a passion and a skill, and it goes all the way through. So I think keeping it really simple, making sure that if there is a supervisory position, that there is an alternative way of evaluating the employee who's being supervised, and allowing the director of schools to do his job and manage the people while we manage the policy is going to be our best path forward. And I also agree, I don't think we need to go aunt, uncle, nephew, niece, very detailed. And I also don't think we need to have these alternative plans in front of the board. It's policy, not people, that we are managing. And as long as those plans are documented and with the director of schools, then that's our obligation, and that's what's best for the county.
So my suggestion is, again, we've got good feedback, good suggestions. What I would ask is that everybody take time. I know Mr. King sent his email out yesterday with a lot of information. He shared some of that with us tonight. Take time to look over that. We've got a meeting in 2 weeks. If you've got feedback, thoughts, suggestions, send that to me, send it to Jeremy, send it to Dr. Langford. And what we'll do is we'll work to maybe draft a policy that takes these ideas together to present to the board. At that point, obviously, if there's things that we need to change as a board, we'll have the ability to make adjustments. We'll, amend that, and we can have time to have that discussion. I think we're in a spot where there's not an urgency where we have to have this in place in the next month, especially since really the hiring cycle's just kind of ended and leading into, I guess the next hiring cycle would be as we move to the end of this year and look at the second semester. But that'll give us time to kind of work through it. Whether it's 2 readings or 3 readings in our voting session, I think it's important that we just try to get it right. So my suggestion is provide that feedback. I'll work on getting something back to the board to look at, so that we all have time to kind of dig into it. We can do our research. If you have questions, around the policy, around TSBA, around some of the other statutes, then feel free to reach out about that as well, and we'll get those questions answered for you. I think there's a lot of good conversation. Obviously, I don't think we're going to come to a resolution tonight, but that's why you have multiple study sessions, talk through something, and this is to share ideas. So thank you, Mr. King, for bringing this up. Mr. Lacey, I'll go to you and then come back to you, Mr. King.
I know Mr. Evans made a statement about the second paragraph, but there's already a state law and board policy that specifies when you're voting on something that somebody in your household will benefit from, you're supposed to notify the board when you do so.
Yeah, I think the question around that is what specifically does that mean? Because, if you've got a spouse that's in the school system, do you have to say it before every vote? Do you say it at the beginning of a meeting, or is it, things, that are more direct, like a budget?
I think our board policy specifies that you have to specify before you vote.
Yep. So, yeah,
And
we'll
there's
get...
even a form that you fill out that you're supposed to turn in.
Yeah, we can get some clarity on that, and then I think we can get with our director. And if it's as simply as putting a form together that you have to sign if you've got a relative, that way it's public record before you vote. I think most people know who spouses are that, especially when you get into budgets and things like that. I think it's really important now if you're getting into like vendors and, subcontract type relationships, if you've got a tie, that I think that's when it gets really, really important.
So if I sign a form that says it, I still have to say it in the meeting. That doesn't make any sense.
We'll get clarity.
That's so outdated.
Yeah, we'll get clarity on that.
Hey, my wife's a teacher.
Yeah.
Surprise.
There you go. You've got it covered.
And just one other question is, just say this does pass, do we need to put an exception in there if there is someone or multiple families in the county that are in this situation, would they be grandfathered in? So I think that would need to be specified. The director
Good point.
would recommend.
Mr. King?
Yeah, so on the, providing a disclaimer, traditionally that has occurred when there's a budget vote among elected officials. It hasn't been for every single vote, so that's good, But it's probably like one time a year or something like that when it's a budget vote. But also conflicts of interest. You brought up like a vendor or let's say your uncle is has a paving service and the board he's got a bid. I think there's some, we have policy on conflicts of interest as well, and I encourage you all to read that, look that up. I do want to say one thing about uncle, aunt, nephew, niece. That's the only thing I added there. The rest of that, in that definitions of relatives, I mean, it has a whole wide range of different, that was our original policy. So I'm just, and I left that alone thinking, well, maybe some people might provide some feedback on that, because that is one thing that's kind of confusing. It says, or any other family member who reside in the same household. There's just, so I see what you're saying with that, you know. But yeah, that, just wanted to make that point, and okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, anything else? All right. Next item on the agenda, presentation of district testing data for school year 24-25.
Yeah. As Ms. Skinner and her team go to the mic and platform over there, I'll just take a few moments to share. You know, we, with Ms. Dam retiring, we did some restructuring. You're going to see the results of that tonight. I'm really excited for Ms. Skinner to walk you through her team and to look at our data, but also to see a team where we have special education, CTE and STEM, behavior, and curriculum and instruction all working together. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Skinner. I'm really excited to hear their presentation.
And it is a pleasure to introduce this rock star team to you. We are really excited to have this new structure. We have 4 experts at the table leading some really important work in the district, so it's exciting to see, and I'm excited for you to hear their presentation and get to know them a little better. It disappeared from there. Sorry. Technology problems. Sure.
Sorry about that.
You're good. It's not working. I didn't memorize your bios. So while we're waiting, the first day of school was exciting. Out and about in schools. My grandson started at North Sumner Elementary. I didn't do the initial because I wanted his parents to experience that, so I waited about an hour, and I went to visit his kindergarten classroom, and I walked in, and he said, "JoJo, do you work here?" It's really sweet. All right, so Chase Moore is our Director of CTE and Innovation. Raise your hand. Yep, he's a lifelong Sumner County resident who attended Beach Schools K-12, so the spectrum. He's entering his 6th year for Sumner County Schools, 7 years as a marketing teacher, and 8 years in the CTE department. So I asked him to add a quote for their why behind serving Sumner County Schools. So Chase says, "I love to serve Sumner County Schools because I have a passion for seeing students find their career path and getting a head start down their path while in high school." Julie Daniel. She's a graduate of Beach High School also. Entering her 25th year in Sumner County Schools, she's been a special ed teacher, a reading consultant, a special education supervisor, and currently the director of exceptional students. We changed the name of that department. And her why is, "My greatest joy in this work is witnessing teachers and staff within buildings invest in students with disabilities each and every day. They truly embrace the spirit of small wins as big victories."
And real quick, we're not related, just to clarify. I just want to throw that out there since we just had this discussion.
I don't have you have an S.
It doesn't have an S on the end, but I just want to make sure we're
I
good.
always have to clarify that.
I always add the S, and I have to remember to take it off. Dr. David Hallman, recently a doctor this year, is his 32 in total in education years. It's his 29th year in Sumner County. He's loved each moment of work in Sumner County at multiple schools as a teacher and principal. He was a middle school supervisor last year and then moved into the director of classroom support. So his why is, when I was very young, one person chose to make a difference in my life, to go above and beyond, to believe in me, and it changed my life. She is the inspiration of why I do this work, to make a positive difference in as many lives as possible. And then Dr. Ann Miller, alum of Beach High School, 20 years of experience in Sumner County Schools, special education teacher, assistant principal, and joined the district training this fall as the director of curriculum and instruction. Her why:
I want to serve students and teachers in Sumner County Schools because I believe education is the most important job in the world. If we don't love, grow, and educate our students, we fail society as a whole. Every student deserves to come to school and be taught by an amazing teacher that loves them. This is everyone's, our future. So collectively, this group has 93 years of experience.
And half of those are David Holman.
And I want to share that Tammy and Shelly, I'm going to work really hard to get some HHS representation on this team. Yeah, just wanted to point that out. I was reading this and I was like, wait, y'all are all from Beach High School? How'd that happen? I'm kidding, they're amazing. Her dad taught at Hendersonville, so you count a little bit. So they're going to share their presentation, but I wanted to go through a couple of the work that we're doing and why we're doing it. So why do we exist? Sumner County Schools develops better people to make a better world. So we are going to share this message far and wide. And when we say people, we mean inside these walls and outside these walls. So board members, teachers, leaders, students, family, community members, we want this message everywhere. And we want to develop all of those people. We feel like we have a really big impact on the community. And so sharing that and impacting all those people is important to us. Our Sumner County vision, what we do, we educate and prepare all students for their first and future career. So every decision that we make in this district, no matter what department you're in, we're asking that question. Does it impact students for their first and future career? From pre-K all the way till they leave us. How do we behave? So these are our core values. Grit, bought into the mission, growth mindset, and humble. So how did we land here? Dr. Langford's leadership team did some extensive work on our mission and vision and core values. And so when we got to this part, we were asked the question, when you think about employees in your district, the great employees that you love and did fantastic work, what do they possess? And these are the qualities that we landed on. We named people that had these qualities. We talked about Vincie Barber, Gene Hessen. I could go on and on and on about the people that lead great work that embody these. And so when we are bringing people to Sumner County, we want these core values to be present from inside out. And then how do we succeed? Dr. Miller is going to kick us off on this presentation to show you in the past year how we did anchor the community, how we innovate for opportunity, and how we invest for development by sharing some data pieces with you. So Dr. Miller.
All right, we're going to be short, sweet, and to the point. So we want to make sure that you understand the big picture of the work that we do and the impact that it has in our community. So I'm going to take a couple of seconds just to have you read this quote. I'm not going to read to you. You're very intelligent. Lots of that happens. And as you're reading this, think about, just think for a minute, how many of you have children? Grandchildren? Nieces, nephews? Great grandkids, okay. Might be a poor analogy considering following the nepotism thing, but well, we're gonna go with it, okay? So we are literally, when you go to a family function and you walk into that room, you just feel love for those people. Even when you're kind of mad at them, you know, like you're like, I'm a little frustrated, but that's your family. You feel love, you're excited to see those people. You cover, you serve, you protect those people. I can tell you from the 20 years that I've been in Sumner County Schools as an educator, and my dad taught in Sumner County. I was raised in Hendersonville High School's hallways and field houses and concession stands. I've stolen a lot of blow pops from Hendersonville High School. I just have to confess that. But I was 5, so I think I was okay with it. You know, just thinking about it, when we walk into our school buildings, these teachers and these board members and you guys and our district staff, that's how we feel about our kids. Literally, when we walk in, I just left a school of 850 kids at White House. I had 2 of my own that went there, and I promise you, felt no different from my own kids when I walked in. Every student there was my child. And I can tell you, sometimes that means tough love, sometimes that means empathy and some kind of hand-holding. But you've got to understand that every single person in this room, in this district, works like that is their child. So if you can just keep that in your mind, and as a parent, we've all had to make tough decisions. So remember that we have to be together. We have to understand for the greater good of the child, not just today, but the child for their first and future career. We are preparing kindergartners for the workforce. So we have to remember that. So I just want you to frame your mind a little bit around that quote as we walk through this data. Don't get too bogged down in the numbers. So we're going to reflect a little bit, and before we move in, I want to remind you, Every single thing you hear tonight, there's a one pager that you guys have. Every number is a child. Every number. And behind that child, there's a teacher, maybe two teachers. There are secretaries. There are teachers' aides. There are custodial staff. There are lunch ladies. There are nurses, counselors. Behind them is an admin team that takes it home and just bears the burden of taking care of, hundreds of kids every day. Behind that team is this district team that comes to work every day disjointed from buildings but still holding that spirit of education. And then we reach out to the community. Then it's you guys and the commission and every single community member in Sumner County. I want you to remember that as we walk through this data, because we can get really bogged down in percentages and on track and mastery, and all of that is super important. But I just want you to remember, just think about your child when we read these stats, and we're going to meet every kid right where they are, and we're going to handhold them right to the end. And the end is not the graduation cap. The end is when they come back and they teach in our schools, or they serve on our boards, or they're on, in the Chamber of Commerce. So I just want you to frame your mind before we really get started and dig into this data, to make sure you remember that these are people, and these people love your kids, and these kids work hard. And we've got to remember that this progress is painstakingly slow, but it's very, very important. So I'm going to pass it over to David Holman. He's going to run through some of our high school data, and we'll take questions at the end, okay?
I want to be brief, but I want to go ahead and address the elephant in the room, that I am the only one here who is not a Beach graduate. It's been pointed out to me numerous times, my blood bleeds orange, even if it is Clemson orange, but I'm very thankful to be here with each of y'all. When I think about our vision, better people for a better world, I think about the people that made a difference in my life and the opportunity that that effort by one person who expanded my opportunities in school, impacted the teachers who worked with me, and gave me the opportunity to be here. Because I've shared before, Mrs. Timmerman was that one person. She was my principal. And if she had not been there, I would not be here today. I have absolutely no doubt. She loved me enough to hold me accountable, to push me, and to give me opportunities when other people didn't believe that I should have those opportunities, or maybe my circumstances wouldn't have allowed it otherwise. And so I look at this first number and I think about the opportunities that Sumner County Schools, you as board members, principals and teachers, cafeteria workers, etc., all of our staff have given to our students $70.7 million last year in scholarships. My son was a senior last year, and as a graduate with scholarship money to go to Western Kentucky, how much easier it is for us. We have 4 children, so we've always, for the last several years, had 2 children in college. This is a difference maker, and it's also nearly $7 million more than 2 years ago. What a great example of how we're giving our students these expanded opportunities through the things that y'all are providing, that our administrators and staff at the schools are giving to them, because it's giving them the opportunity to say yes to college if that is the choice they want to make. We also, though, have a number of our students that have chosen to serve all of us in the military. What a blessing. 39 students this year. I think it was 39 students last year. And they will make a difference for each of us as well as in their own lives. I look at this number here at the top, 373 students that scored 30 plus. Last year it was a little bit less than 300. Again, by the things that we're providing for our students, by the work that they're putting in, we're expanding their opportunities. Because when I look at 373 students with a 30 plus, I see scholarships. I see expanded opportunities in a variety of colleges that they would not necessarily have had if they didn't achieve at that level. So we're making a difference in the lives of our children, and that's what, 25%, almost 25% increase. It's just a phenomenal growth for our students. And finally, look at our graduation rate, at 97.5%. In 2022, it's 95.2%. we're getting to where we're almost there at 100%. And this is the kind of progress that makes a difference in the lives of our children, truly preparing them to be better for the world. So that's all I have at this time. But Mr. Moore is going to take us next.
So several years ago in CTE, we put a focus on 4 areas. It was all about increasing opportunities for students and how can we provide these opportunities that Dr. Hummel was talking about. So the first one I want to discuss is industry credentials. So what this means is, I remember my resume out of college, it said I was proficient in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Well, according to who? According to me? You as my employer may not think that my level of proficiency is what you think proficient is. So what does that mean? Industry credential means I'll pass an industry standard test known in that industry that, hey, I might say that, but I've got this piece of paper that says I know this skill, that I can do this skill. So if you hire me, I can do this for you. And so several years ago, when we first started, we were at 120 certifications. We passed 2,000 for the first time ever. And all these 4 numbers you're going to see, they're all record highs. So what that tells you is that our teachers and students are absolutely doing phenomenal work. Because for teachers, this is all new stuff for them. They have to learn the certification, learn how to prep their students for the test, learn how to pass these dual enrollment courses, dual credit exams. So it's all new. So it's challenging teachers to take on something new, and then in return, they're helping their students to pass those tests. So, incredible number. The next one's dual enrollment. Dual enrollment means it's a high school course where if they pass it, they get college credit and high school credit at the same time. The growth here has been in TCAT. We've tried to focus a lot on our TCAT partnerships because we know what a great option that is for students after high school. We had a low number choosing TCAT. We're very lucky here. We have TCAT Portland, which is about to undergo a $45 million or so renovation and addition. We've also got TCAT Hartsville and TCAT Nashville, both nearby. And so we all know that when we have an electrician come out or a plumber come out or get our AC fixed, we're paying a lot of money. So those are leading to great jobs, and they're in high demand. And so we're hoping that if kids have an interest, students have an interest in those areas, that we can push them that way because it's Tennessee Promise, it's free, it's 2 years or less, and it's a great option for them to be 20, 21 years old and making pretty good money. Here's a chart showing our industry credential growth. Like I said, 9 years ago, 120, and it has skyrocketed. Now, please don't think this is going to continue to increase at this rate because I don't know if we can. I think we're going to settle between 1,500 and 2,000, which is still a great number. And the one dip you see there is the year that COVID hit. We lost the last 9 weeks. So besides that, it's been upward trajectory. Great work by our people. The next couple stats I want to give you, dual credit exams. So they take a high school class. When they finish it, there's an exam made by a college. Ours are either Ball State or Nashville State. So you pass the final exam, you get 3 hours credit. So again, this is the most we've ever had. 311 students passed a dual credit exam, which earns them college credit if they choose to go to that institution. And then finally, the one that I'm probably the most proud of is our CTSOs. This stands for Career and Technical Student Organization. Every CTE program in the county is aligned to a club. So we have DECA for marketing, we have FBLA for our business students, we have FCCLA, which is for human services and our education students, we have FFA for our ag students, HOSA for health science, and then Skills USA is kind of the catch-all. So the piece here, when I was a student at Beach, which most of us are over here, and then when I taught at Beach as well, my favorite part as a student and a teacher was DECA, hands down. The experience you get, the competitiveness you get, the application to real world through these events is tremendous. And coming out of COVID, I'll go to the next one, our numbers were the lowest they've been in a while. Because we didn't keep track of this, but after COVID, competitions were virtual. And so students, without the appeal of going to a conference out of town somewhere, it was hard to get them interested. And so we pushed pretty hard on, hey, let's get our numbers back up for these CTSOs because we know what a valuable part this is of a high school experience for our students. So the number you see here is if you were a chapter member, so you member one of those organizations, and then if you competed in district and or state, but also national. So you could be counted 4 times if you met all 4 of those. And so you'll see from our number, we had 5,700 last year, so we doubled since coming out of COVID. So again, our teachers have done a tremendous job working with their students to get them excited and participating in those events. And then lastly, I won't read you all these numbers, but we just finished year 2 of our career coaches, which has been a huge asset to our county. I want to point out 2 numbers to you. Industry contacts. So this is a career coach meeting an employer at a chamber meeting, or having a career fair and talking to people. You know, our teachers in CTE, they do a fantastic job. They're so busy, they don't have time to go out and knock on doors and cold call and try to find business partners. These career coaches, that's part of their job. They've made over 3,000 contacts in 2 years trying to find guest speakers, trying to find field trips, trying to find partnerships for those programs to work with. And then the other number is industry tours. Our students are learning skills in the classroom within the 4 walls of that room. However, it's not always easy to know how that skill set is applied to an actual job. Yeah, I can weld, but what's it look like if I'm actually welding a trailer? So these industry tours are taking the students interested in that area and going on a visit, a tour, and field trip of what that job is actually like. And so that's been invaluable for our students, because they're finding out, is this a real career option for me? Maybe it's not, that's fine, but it's better to find that out in high school than picking a post-secondary option and not actually being that into it. So that is some of our CTE data. I'm handing it off to Dr. Miller.
Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about advanced placement numbers. This is a big topic right now, and I want to make sure that you understand as we go through the rest of this high school data. Every single thing that we've talked about is available to every single student. It is not, this group of kids does this group, like I have walked the halls of schools and seen kids in auto shop changing oil and then sitting in AP government the next block, and then playing baseball or football or wrestling, and then competing in DECA. So thinking about that our kids are getting such a great opportunity, and then also that our teachers, all of these things that we're asking them to do and provide for our kids require extra time, extra training, and they love it. They absolutely love it. So the AP numbers are really, really exciting. I'm going to read so I don't mess these up. This year we had 145 AP scholars, and advanced placement classes are really, they go through AP College Board and they get trained and they use their curriculum. It's aligned with national and international even college curriculums. So we had 145 AP scholars, and that's up from 78 last year. An AP scholar basically scores a 3 or higher in 3 AP exams. So it's on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 is the high score and a 1 is the lowest. But if you scored 3 or higher on 3 exams, then you're an AP scholar. That's the equivalent of $3,750 in college credit. That's just basic in-state, tuition. AP scholars with honors, if you're an AP scholars with honors, that means you've scored a 3 or higher on 4 or more AP exams, and you kept a 3.25 average on all your exams. So you've got a pass rate component and kind of a GPA component there to have an honors distinction. And that's the equivalent of $5,000 in college tuition. Distinction would be 5 or more exams and a 3.5 average. This is huge, guys, and our kids are achieving this by their junior year. This is not at the end of their senior year. That's the equivalent of $6,250 tuition. Then a capstone. This is something that our district's implemented the past few years. Basically, these students take what's called AP Seminar and AP Research, and it teaches them to actually do. Several of us have gone through doctoral programs. They are doing that same process. My child went through it, and she probably wrote a better dissertation than I did about special education and the effect of fish in their classrooms. But they work so hard, and you think about the skills that these kids are learning and the confidence that they have. But their AP Capstone diploma, you're going to earn AP Research, AP Seminar, and then you're going to have to score 3 or higher on 4 additional exams. So that's 6 college credits, and that's the equivalent of $7,500 tuition. So right now in Sumner County, we have 145 AP scholars, 238 scholars with honors and distinction, and 33 capstone diplomas from last year. A total of 451 students honored, and it's up from 366. Just understanding the amount of work that goes into, like, this does not happen in public schools across the state. This is a really big deal, and our kids work really hard. And when you've got, I was telling somebody a minute ago that at White House we run about 850 kids, so our percentage of who should be in AP classes should be about 10%, and over half of our students took and sat for an AP exam. and just getting them confidence to know they can do that work, and it just opens so many doors for them. So it's just really, really exciting to see that work across the board. This is really interesting. This is our district-wide AP kind of screenshot, kind of snapshot for the year. This shows a 3, 4, or 5 is considered passing. If you get a 4 or 5, it's a really big deal. Most colleges across the nation will accept that as a college credit. And as you're not just getting credit, there's a lot of research behind admissions, actually looking at kids' transcripts, and when they see advanced placement classes on there, they kind of move to the top of the list. So it's giving them entry into things. We've had several students that have gotten really prestigious scholarships because of their AP offerings. So if you look at this district-wide, we've had 1,804 AP classes passed, which equals 5,412 college credits and over $2.2 million in scholarship or in tuition. Our parents are saving $2.2 million in tuition just by taking AP classes. And that's just the financial impact. So I think it's just really important for us to also realize that as we've grown this AP program throughout the district, we have increased the number of courses we've offered. We've also increased the number of students in the courses. So both of those numbers have gone up. But the beauty of it is we've also increased the pass rate. So it's not smoke and mirrors like we're closing it off to only our highest kids so our pass rate goes up. All of it's going up. We have more offerings, we have more kids taking multiple tests, and our pass rate's going up. And that also is a huge testament to the work you guys do in helping us with the budget, because our district's done some great work with helping lift the financial burden of paying for AP tests for some of our students that it might be a burden on. So just getting you to understand how that investment is paying off when we pass that budget to pay for extended AP tests for kids is just really huge. So we're really excited about that. I am going to show you this. We're going to go through this next piece pretty quickly. Data is really complicated, and there's lots of things to it. So I worked with Anna Connor in our department just to kind of say, hey, what do you think is most impactful? These are ELA scores, and this is K-12. So you just listened to about 20 some odd minutes of high school. That didn't happen by accident. They had years of pre-K, kindergarten, elementary, and middle school teachers and people and coaches pouring into them to get to that point. And as you can see, we have a great, very healthy progression of ELA scores increasing every year. We're not where we want to be. Will we ever be? Probably not. But this is really big in the fact that literacy has been a driving force behind a lot of the things that we've done, a lot of the curriculum we purchased, a lot of the training we've done. Even if you can stretch your brains a little bit, safe schools, nursing, all of the things we do creates the environment for learning to happen. So even when we put SROs in a building or we have extra policies around things, it's got to drive this. And so that's what I think is really, really cool. So I'm going to pass it to Julie and let her give you some information on some literacy initiatives that we've done in the district.
It's nice to be here with all of you tonight. We wanted to take time to highlight a few projects that we've been working on. We have several people at the district level that are very passionate about this work. They are listening to teachers and principals every day to get the right things in the hands of teachers so that they can support student growth and student learning. Many of you are probably familiar with our Sumner Reads Fluency Project. I love this stuff because I spent many years as a reading consultant, and I'm very passionate about making sure that our youngest students are prepped and ready to learn by reading. This is something that some of you may, as parents, have been involved in with your students. This is a way for us to get fluency work in the hands of students. We know that in the early grades, that's foundational reading skills. It's really important that as students are learning that, they become proficient and more fluent with their reading. And this is an easy way for parents to support that at home. We took input from parents and teachers, and that's why we created this project. Our elementary department works very hard to get this stuff to teachers. After last year, they took feedback from teachers, and they're changing some of the things that are offered for students so that our kindergartners also have some more opportunities before they're actually reading passages. In a survey that we had with parents, 92% of those parents responded that they are in fact practicing this with students. We think that that's in part to it being very accessible to parents. It's easy to make up make time for that with students. When you have lots of homework, this is something simple and parents can feel like they're supporting their students. So we're very excited to continue that work and continue developing that. Teachers have been very responsive. This is something that teachers wanted and parents have been very receptive to. All right. Some of you have been involved with the One Book Blitz. Everybody loves this. This is very exciting. So yes, we have to work on making sure that kids know how to read, and this is a way for us to create kids who love to read. The schools are very excited about this. This year, all 15 of our Title I elementary schools participated in this. The book was Because of Winn-Dixie. 5,800 students were able to receive that book and engage in reading. Obviously, we push this out into social media so that people see the impact of adults reading with kids. I think many of you have also engaged in that. In addition to the One Book Blitz, that's a huge event for us, but it's important to note also that there were 60 plus other family engagement activities that were out across the schools. Our Title I schools are very passionate about this work. Anything that they can do to engage parents in learning with their students, we're very supportive of. So very excited about that. All right, Course Mojo. If you want to get lots of information from a person who is very passionate about it, speak with Adam Cripps. He has boots on the ground work with this. He's very excited about the potential that Course Mojo has. You'll see there that there's a quote and it says, "It's like the handout is talking back to me." That's actually feedback we got from a student. So Course Mojo is a technology tool that we're putting in the hands of students. We piloted it this past year, and it basically gives students an opportunity to have AI-assisted feedback as they're reading text. You know that teachers in a middle school are not able to give direct feedback to every student as they're learning. This enables students to be getting feedback that's quality, and teachers are able to also see in real time how students are participating in that. Teachers are also able to see at the end of a lesson the main misconceptions that students are having so that they can adjust course and support student learning. What we're most excited about as we push that out into the rest of the middle schools, we piloted it in 6th grade in 6 schools. We've prepared a little bit of data to show just the potential for the increase. As Ann had shared, when we're looking at increasing student achievement, particularly with ELA, these are the things that make a difference for student achievement. Our Sumner 6th grade Mojo pilot, you can see the increase there that's highlighted in green. That of those students, we were able to increase their achievement by 8%, which is huge compared to the non-pilot schools. The 7th grade is there for you as a comparison so you can see the potential when we bring that into 7th grade, what we're able to do, considering that both of those grade levels had experienced a decrease. So some of the things that teachers have told us about this, it has been overwhelmingly positive. Teachers feel like this is something that is helpful. It's not one other thing to add to the plate. It is truly increasing my ability to teach students and for student engagement. They see the ability for differentiation opportunities. We're meeting the needs of lots of different kids, and teachers are able to achieve that with Course Mojo. They very clearly see it as being a tool. It is most certainly not a replacement for a teacher. We all know that the most important factor in that classroom is going to be that teacher, and people are recognizing this is a great tool to assist those teachers. We're hoping that it's going to actually support students of all subgroups. So we're seeing a lot of potential with our students with disabilities as well as our economically disadvantaged. So we're very excited about those projects. All right, Ann?
Before you start, Ann, I want you to hear the numbers for the achievement gap for students with disabilities, 16 points to just 5 points. They closed the gap from 16 to 5. And economically disadvantaged students scored nearly 9 scale points higher than their peers. So huge impact.
So 3rd grade retention is a big thing right now, and it's a lot of pressure in our schools. It's a lot of pressure on our families. I've seen 3rd grade parents and just nervous as all get out, waiting for their child to take this test, which is a little bit kind of disheartening. But just remembering that our system is amazing. Right now we have a 99.9 3rd grade promotion. So literally we had 2 students out of 2,340 3rd graders that did not promote to 4th grade. That's a huge number, there are several pathways, retakes of TCAPs, summer scholars where they're filling gaps, tutoring sessions, different things that these teachers are pouring into kids and helping families. And again, that goes back to those literacy pieces, giving the parents some control to say, we're going to meet you and your kid where you are, and we're going to let them develop the way that they need to, and we're going to love you through this. But that's a huge success rate for our third grade team across the board. And I'll tell you, the fear around this has been really impactful, because it's hard to find teachers that want to go to third grade, because there's so much public pressure around teaching that test and teaching that grade level and dealing with those parents. And it's all understandable, but we've got to do better as a society to see the people and the kids, those little children that are sitting at their third grade classroom just trying their hardest to be their best. But that's something that you guys could really help us with, the narrative in the community, is to realize that we're going to love you through it. We know you're working hard, and we're going to support you, because that's a really hard thing to watch a brand new teacher come into that high pressure environment. So just something to keep in mind as we move forward. We talked a lot about ELA. We know ELA and literacy touches everything. If they can learn to read and digest information, it's going to help them cognitively with everything else that they do. So our math numbers are equally important, and we did K-12 as well. So this is kindergarten through 12th grade math scores, and we're just seeing the same steady increase of what we're doing. The really interesting thing that you can think about from a data perspective is there's something called an implementation gap that you usually get when you get a new curriculum. Usually take a little dip, and if you haven't been around the last couple of years, we've implemented a few new curriculums in the county, and you still see this steady climb of achievement. And guys, I want to remind you, this is the number of kids that are met and exceeded. This is achievement. This is not, did I grow them? Did I meet them where they are and make them better? This is, hey, we brought these kids to the finish line where the state says they need to be, and we're going to keep pushing them. So just frame that and realize that's really hard work, and we're doing it really, really well. So these are both exciting statistics. We're going to move a little bit into the kind of human capital piece. We've talked a lot about family. We've talked a lot about kids, but we all know that our teachers and our staff are vitally important to this, and that's all the way from the schools to the district office to the community. So I'm going to let David talk a little bit about just how we're supporting our teachers and our faculty and staff.
Isn't that data amazing? I think about my son. Last year, my youngest son graduated from Gallatin High School, and when I think about ACT scores and AP courses, he left Gallatin High School at the end of the year with 33 credits to go to Western Kentucky University. He's a sophomore. It took me a little bit longer to get there at Clemson than that. So, we're really excited for him, and we're really excited for us also. But it's this sort of data is telling a story about people, children, and us, who have family, children in the school system, grandchildren in the school system, nieces and nephews, etc. I mean, it's amazing to look at that data. Now, I've been doing this for a little while, and one of the things that is most exciting is I got to talk about this slide, because when Mrs. Skinner and Dr. Langford shared last year this vision of developing better people to prepare them to make a better world, I thought, finally we're embracing all of us in Sumner County Schools. Like, yes, we are here for the children, but if we don't think about all of us and improving all of us, we'll never meet the needs of our kids. We'll never get to that place that we want to. And so when we think about developing better people, we're talking about our staff also. And so I think about this summer and last summer in particular, because those are the things that I'm really passionate about, and all the opportunities that we provided. This summer we had 3 opportunities for our teachers to go to day 1 on the drive, and they got 2 different experiences. One was 3 hours of TCIS training, which is a refresher. We're not letting that go. We're developing even more. We had over 2,400 teachers last year just in the summer, and then about 60 more during the year that went through training for 3 days on therapeutic de-escalation that is good for everybody, not just the kids that are most at risk, but for me and for you and for all of us. And they've spent a lot of time on that this year. We're just taking it to the next step. And so they had that opportunity. And then if they were in 6th grade through 12th grade as teachers, they got to expand on their knowledge of working with the iPads. And the beauty of that was we met them where they were at. So if they were brand new to the iPad, we had a specific class for them. And if they were experienced, we had something for them, meeting their needs. And we had the same thing for our K through 5 teachers, whether it was in reading or science development, foundations. We met them where they were at. And that was part of the professional learning this summer, and it continued into the day 2 as well. Again, developing better people, right? So it's all of us. I love our vision. And I think about last year, and we're not going to go through all these numbers, but we spent a lot of time in a lot of different places training our teachers. This year, we expanded that for our new teachers as well. And then, we're going to continue to do that as we move forward, but also for our administrators who all went through that training last year. We had something uniquely specific for them to meet their needs in the classrooms and in their buildings. So they had training just for them. Our teachers had ongoing training. We're going to continue to do that. So it's just exciting to see this extra effort of developing better people. Thank y'all.
All right, so a couple other things before we finish up, just regarding our faculty and staff. Instructional coaches is a little bit of a newer concept. They've been called lead educators, so they're called instructional coaches. If you haven't picked up on anything in education, it's pretty complex, and things change, and it takes a lot of moving parts to do it well. And obviously, we're doing a lot of things well. So almost every school in the district has an instructional coach. And the number of coaches has increased, but I think the interesting part is the new people that we're onboarding every year. These people are going through Lipscomb University, taking coaching classes that is earning them higher education credit and making them better educators, better leaders, better instructional, just sounding boards in our buildings. And they walk alongside these teachers, they walk alongside these kids. They're still in the trenches, they're still building lesson plans and helping critique the delivery. They're helping with PL, they're helping with all these kinds of things, which is really exciting as we ask our principals to step into that instructional leadership role as well. We know we've got to build teams and run buildings and be community liaisons, but instruction is the name of the game. That's why we're all here. We want our kids to learn. So I can say personally, as a former principal, that instructional coaching has been a huge lift for our teachers. And this next slide, we kind of talk about advancements. A lot of these instructional coaches are moving into AP and principal roles. They're coming to the district to share that knowledge out. And I want to make sure I'm clear that these people are moving into roles, not for a pay raise, not for a title or a name. It's to better impact every person that I talk to. It's like, well, if I could be a principal, I could impact this many kids. If I can go to the district, I can impact this many kids. The humble spirit of our core values is there, and they're driving the work, and it's awesome. And this next slide shows you why we need it. We hired 197 new teachers this year. That's a lot of people, 197, and 125 of them have exactly 0 experience in a classroom. So knowing that this was coming, our district being innovative, one of our core anchors, Amanda Brown and her team have started a Teach Sumner, this kind of internal education or prep program. You'll hear more about it later. I just want to give a shout out to the fact that our district knew this was coming, and we didn't sit back and complain about a teacher shortage or whine because we weren't getting high quality candidates. We did something about it. We created a team with amazing people, and they're doing the work. So 125 have 0 experience. 75 of those are job embedded, which means they went to school for something else, realized that their calling was education, they're coming back to teach. But they don't know how to teach yet, right? So we have to teach them. So job embedded. And out of 75 job embedded, 58 are with this crew right here, learning how to teach within the walls of Sumner County. We are teaching them as educator prep programs how to be an educator. So we are not only recruiting, we are training and we are retaining. And we're growing, guys. This is not a small thing. We currently have 5 unfilled full-time positions in Sumner County. 5 in the whole county. Because we're out there, our teams are out there recruiting people. They want to be here. They want to be in this county because what we do is good and what we do is student-centered and what we do is passionate. That is huge. And it's not just the certified staff. We've hired 135 new classified employees. I don't know if you've ever been in a building, but I know that I couldn't run my building without our front office clerks and our librarians and our custodians and our food service people. So we're hiring people, we're loving people, we're training people, and they are becoming part of our Sumner County School family. I can't tell you how exciting the work is, and I just encourage you as we close out, I'm going to pass to Julie to close out. I just encourage you to get in these buildings. Just go watch the learning and teaching that is happening, because it's awesome. And if you leave there grumpy, I don't know how to help you. But it's just an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to be a part of. I'm blessed to be a part of this team, and I'm going to let Julie wind us down.
Thank you. I do want to say, to follow up with Ann, last week I had the opportunity to speak to all of our special ed teachers and our related staff. And within that group, we have a teacher who is job embedded, and he has come back to this as a second career. He had many years in TV production, producing The Real World for MTV, decides he wants to be a comprehensive development class teacher at Station Camp High, and he helped us create a video for our kickoff. But I just want to highlight that because, as Ann said, these are the people, like, this is the only career where people decide midway through their life, I want to do something different, and I want to do that which is impacting students. So just kind of a real life face to that slide is Matt Rucker at Station Camp High. He's awesome. So how did we do this amazing work that we've just talked about tonight? And the answer is pretty simple. When I spoke to our teachers last week, just trying to think of a simple message to kick off the year and expressing gratitude to them, I fully realize, and I think everybody in this room does, that the greatest asset we have in these schools are our teachers and the people within these buildings that do this work every day. Yes, it does extend up to our central office, our district office. We love what we do, and we're part of conversations every day where we're talking about what is best for kids. But it takes this, what you're seeing there, to actually make it happen for students, and we're very excited about that. Also, as to kind of end the night talking about us all coming together, I do want to say I worked in my department for 20 years. When we were looking at this restructure, I couldn't tell you how happy I am about that, to know that students with disabilities we're looking at instruction for all. Like, this is the first time ever that I've ever worked here where I get to be part of a great team, and we're considering what's best for all students regardless of their ability. So when we say that we will work together to do what's best for kids, we mean it. I'm really excited about the work that this group does and the people that work with us. We're just 4 people here talking tonight, and it takes a lot of people to make this work actually happen. The collaboration and communication, we will be collaborating and communicating to find those solutions to all the obstacles, because that's just part of what we do. Day 2 of school, and we have obstacles, but we're collaborating, we're communicating, and making things work for students. And then, of course, celebrating each other when we achieve great things. Frankie.
I don't think I have to sell how passionate these people are about their work, and that trickles all the way down in everyone that touches the system. So super proud of them. We're going to do some amazing things this year, and I can't wait to show you the fruits of that labor. So on that note, what questions do you have
Mr. Lang?
about anything you heard about?
Yeah, so as I was going through, I was making notes, but I guess call people because it was so
Yeah, you
different.
Absolutely can.
different
They'll likely
things.
know the answer better.
So first on Ms. Daniels, Ms. Daniels, Dr. Downs, if I messed that up, I'm sorry, but Course Mojo, I know we all got a little hands-on demonstration with that, and I was kind of curious to see those stats, and not surprising that had a positive impact. Did you say that's going in all middle schools this year?
6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Universal K, or not K, 6th through 8th. Right?
Yeah, I was at Knox Doss yesterday, and it was funny. We were in a classroom, and the 6th grade teacher that done it last year, she was kicking it off with her class, and she said, we're gonna have this tool, Mojo. You may have heard about it. It's gonna be amazing. And Dr. Flood jumped in and said, how many of y'all know about AI? And every hand went up. And he said, really? And it's like one of the kids said, Dr. Flood is old. And but then this boy looked at me. He was sitting next to me. He looked at me and he goes, I'll have my own reading coach. And he was pretty fired up. But it's really amazing to see how the kids respond so well to it.
So that is, I'm excited. I've got a 6th grader. Excited to see how that works. But also the Sumner Reads program. That's K through 3rd?
K through 3rd, and all the reading material that goes home is aligned to what they're learning in the classroom for that week.
We did that last year. I think I have one aspect here, but so kindergarten, I know it starts in January. It started last year in January.
So that was feedback that they received. So they're building out some things to send home in first semester that's not full reading yet, but
Right.
some structures that build up to reading.
So 1st and through 3rd, is that the whole year?
It is.
Okay. All right. That's all that. Dr. Miller, the 3rd grade, I know we said 99.9%.
And you'll have to come to the microphone.
How are we doing with the students that require remediation to go to 4th grade? Are we seeing a decline in that, or is it? I know that 99.9 is here. These are the ones
That
go to
means
4th.
2 students did not promote, if that's what you're asking.
Right, but
You're
then
asking about the
you
summer
have the
remediation?
different things that certain ones have to go through. Are we seeing a decline in that percentage?
I'd have to look at the numbers for that from last year for summer scholars to this year, but we can get you that information.
Okay, thanks. That's just
You don't know.
one I want to say, and then also,
There was
are we still?
550, I
This
think,
year.
that sat for the second retake, and about 80 passed it. But then some of them tested out in other areas through remediation or tutoring. But I don't know the exact numbers of who actually showed up for summer scholars. But I think the point is through all of those pathways to success, it hit everyone except for the 2 students that didn't get promoted. So 99.9%.
And is the law still on those that go through the remediation? I know they changed the law every year.
They changed the pathways, the law's the same.
Okay. Is it still, if you get through remediation, if that's
You go to the next grade.
are you still at a risk of being held back in 4th grade?
You'd still have to meet the same requirements that they're asking for 4th graders.
Okay.
Like you still have to make the,
I remember one time there was
Yeah.
some weird convoluted
Right.
formula that, it took somebody with an advanced calculus degree to figure out.
the projection piece of that was difficult.
I didn't know if that was still in play or not. And one other question, this was to Chase, the industry certifications. As an accountant, I hear the scholarship money, I hear the AP scholar money, everything's come back to money. So do y'all have anything on, and this is maybe homework for you,
That's a great question, because one thing I failed to mention is that of those 2,000 credentials, they were in 36 different areas. So we're not hitting 2 areas and loading up. We're 36 areas. Accounting is one we haven't done yet, but QuickBooks is one that is out there. So we've had a few teachers ask about it. Nobody's jumped in yet. So yeah, QuickBooks is one that we could do. So we might need some support on that.
Are
one.
you asking if there's a dollar amount tied to the industry
Right,
certification?
that's what I was because I know starting salary, if you've got this certification versus not.
That's a great question. It is homework, I think.
I think it's all dependent on.
As a bullet point, to be hey, our CTE students that do not go to college,
Right.
and don't take those pathways. What are we? What is the district all giving as far as hey, this certification total for these 2,165 kids? I'm guessing it's going to be a big number.
And I think also that, which we don't have data on, but I think it makes them more employable. So if you get 2 candidates,
Oh, yeah,
one already
that-
has
that's
some
the-
credentials,
that's
one
something
doesn't.
that you could never
Right.
calculate that, but that's just a resume builder. But I know there's
There's got to be, right.
industries that are hey, if you've got this, you're coming in starting at $24 an hour. If you've got this certification, you're getting $28 an hour. And
Right.
I think again, I'm not trying to give you homework, but that would be.
Yeah, it's probably industry specific, but yeah, we can probably find some of the information.
Thank you.
Mr. Evans?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump. I didn't have something, but that sparked. He asked what I was gonna ask, but it did spark something. As far as the high school, are we doing any type of like survey or any type of like follow up with them about how they feel about these AP classes? The only reason why I asked this, I think it's great, and like the way block scheduling is right now, like I mean, I was in course in football. The chances, I mean, I know I could have done AP, but I mean, I took a college English class and college algebra. I think my question is like, I'm glad we're offering a lot. My concern is like, is there any type of feeling from the students that they feel like they're not meeting the standard of, man, I didn't take the 6 AP classes. I didn't take because I just know some students worked for me before. Is that, you feel like that's hurting their chances of getting into college, getting X, Y, and Z? Because then I think you're making them, we're going down a path where we're going to offer them so many things that they're going to have to make choices. And I just want to make sure that, like, we're preparing them for those choices and not that they feel like they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. We were very aware of that. I mean, I can only speak, I've been here at the district level a month, but I can speak specifically at White House where we have 17 AP offerings for 850 kids. We were very aware. I have 2 kids. One is not an AP student, smart enough to be there, but just kind of like you. He wants to play ball, and he's like, I don't want to do all that reading, and he's still going to be fine. I never darkened the door of an AP class, but I took a lot of PE classes and think I did okay. So we really have trained our guidance counselors to sit down with the students and ask questions like, hey, have you gotten a job? Or how's your life? Has anything happened at home? Are you keeping a sibling? What are your career goals? Like, that's a big thing. What do you want to do? We're not going to send them down a pathway of taking arbitrary classes just to be resume fillers. We're really training our guidance counselors to meet those kids where they are. And I mean, my husband went from high school straight to work and makes 3 times what I make, which just is kind of comical sometimes. But on-the-job training is real. Blue-collar certifications are real. And we want to value those. So we try and take time to celebrate all of those things and make sure those kids understand that every single thing they do when they're there is important, as far as what choice and what pathway they take. Same thing with fine arts, and maybe your fine arts is your certification. So yes, we do celebrate those, but I hear what you're saying, and it's very, very real that we need to make sure that all of our kids know they're valued, and that we have real expectations for, like, hey man, where do you want to go? What do you think is important? So that's something that we need to continue to make sure the narrative is realistic for our kids.
Especially as we're building out CTE too. I mean, I just feel like you're basically giving them, I mean, you're pumping out all these different options. At some point, like, there's not really room for error, or if from an offering perspective.
Well, I think one of our goals is to provide our students with a variety of opportunities, meaning fine arts, CTE, AP, like, let's get all the opportunities in front of them so that they know exactly what they want to do. So I don't think we're all in on one pathway. It's more about exploration opportunities for our students.
I think you're putting a lot on a guidance counselor. I mean, most of these schools have how many guidance counselors for X amount of students?
Yeah.
We're talking about strictly numbers here. That's what's a little. I mean, I've heard this from students that work for me.
Yeah.
Talked about this, so I'm just bringing it up.
Something else that we've talked about that we've done at White House is we've pretty much stripped away all prereqs. It used to be very staunch, like if you take math, you have to take science. If you take English, you have to take social studies. If you make a C, you're knocked out the honors pathway. Well, at White House, we pretty much stripped all that away because a lot can happen between freshmen. I might not be ready freshman year, but I'm ready sophomore year. I get a job junior year and I'm playing 3 sports and I want to back out. We've kind of opened up those pathways, and what I found is that kids are like, I really like history. Man, then take AP US. Don't worry about taking AP Lang if you don't like to read. Just do what you love. And so those conversations are happening. It's something that we need to be aware of and be better about, that we're not creating this perfectionism syndrome.
I think something that's gone away. I would say I started teaching AP in Sumner County in 2009. And at that point, there was a mindset that an AP class was only for somebody that was going to major in English.
Yeah.
And that's when we had like just a couple. I mean, like looking at in 2016, I pulled the numbers this morning. We had 330 students district-wide that scored a 3 or higher with a 52% pass rate. This past year, we had 451 AP honors students. So that's more. It's 120 more than we had at even passed 1,800 tests from 600 and something with an 86% pass rate. And I think that reflects exactly what Dr. Miller said, which is, it's not like this elite group of classes, because you can take a class in AP Music Theory or AP Studio Art, or I mean, AP classes are also becoming more hands-on. Like, if you get a chance to see AP Research and Seminar, where kids are asking original research questions, AP Computer Science, that used to have a dismal pass rate, has changed where now kids pose a problem and they use computer science skills to solve that problem. The participation rate especially among minorities and underrepresented communities, has taken off. And I think I would say what's really cool is I think that there's been a healthy culture created where it's not that kind of old school, this is just for the elite, college-bound kids, and they hold each other accountable. Like if you go to the AP night at Hendersonville High School, it's really remarkable to see the community that's been built there. So I think it's like, while I think we can always work, I think that what our counselors because I think the students do a really amazing job of holding each other accountable and pushing each other to find their kind of avenue and way. It's preeminent. I think if you look at a school like, if you look over the class year, like the lowest number, we have one school with one AP class. The minimum at any of our other high schools is 9. And we go all the way up to 24. And what's cool is you have Hendersonville High School, one of our larger high schools, with 24. Merrill Hyde, our smallest high school, with 22. White House with 16, 17. Third smallest high school. Then Gallatin, our largest, that's jumped up to 9. If you look at the pass rates at Gallatin and Portland, that's a significant jump. And I think when you factor that in with the Innovation Center coming on board, what we have with TCAT, with our 2 middle college programs, our kids have a lot of options, but it's really pretty remarkable. We're getting really good at hitting kids where their passion and skill intersect. And that's pretty exciting.
And I wonder about that guy that worked on the Real World too, because if he worked there in 2010, he probably interviewed me. So hopefully he doesn't have that video somewhere of my submission that almost got approved. So.
Ms. Brenny?
Yeah.
Why does that not surprise me?
This close.
I've got a couple of questions. Since we're on AP, let's go back to that for a second. Can we go back to the slide that had the high schools and the AP piece? One of the things I noticed, and I was just curious about, is that most of these schools have 100 plus tests, and that they're administering, and Westmoreland has 16. They're like 10 times smaller on the AP coursework. What's the reasoning there?
I think that we've always allowed schools to identify what their needs are and then invest there. I know that we've made this is one of the cool things I think about Sumner County. Katie, with one of the grants that she administers, has invested so all the teachers in Sumner County have been able to receive training to teach AP. We try a lot of times to have a teacher teach for a year and then go if we can, but if we don't have the subject offered, we let teachers go because it's the best training. AP training is amazing. And so I think that, in fact, we even started sending middle school teachers to get that bridge from middle school to high school because the training is so good. So I think that, we entrust our schools to look at what their student needs are, make the investment to provide the opportunity. I know that currently Westmoreland offers 1. I believe, Dr. Miller, they're going to 2 in the spring. Is that correct? We've also invested in pre-AP curriculum. If you have a certain number of classes, then you get the pre-AP curriculum for free, which is great for the district. It saves about $3,000 or $4,000 per school, and it's really a strong curriculum, like for English 1, English 2, and it really builds that foundation. It's hard. I'd really like to shout out Gallatin and Portland, because over the last 3 years, they have really taken a big step forward in investing in AP, and they're seeing the fruit. Like when I came back to White House as principal in 2014, we had one AP class with 5 students enrolled. And when I taught that one AP class, I had 35 in there, but it was the first and only AP course they took. It took me, they weren't prepared for it. So now if you look at what we're doing in middle school, then transitioning that into high school with training and everything, where kids are taking an AP human geography or something freshman year or several others, it builds on that and then the kids develop the skill set. So I think some things just take time. I think that, if you look at Westmoreland High School's EOC scores, they were a reward school last year. They were an A on the report card. They've invested heavily in those areas, and they've done good work in that area. And so I think, I think what we try to look at it is how do you build a base and how do you build on it. So I would expect Westmoreland to start following the footsteps of Portland. Dr. Woods has done a good job. Dr. Becker has done a good job. I would expect to see Westmoreland doing kind of the same thing and building on it. And I think that's, I think that's the great thing is Dr. Miller's done this at White House. Kim Meadows, it's hard to replace Bobby Kane. Bobby Kane is one of the best human beings that you'll ever know as our counseling coordinator. We're going to get her back from JP2 someday. But in the meantime, Kim Meadows was a guidance counselor and assistant principal at Portland. And Kim is just an amazing leader. If you talk about those core values, one of the most humble people you'll ever meet. And she very slowly worked through and built from scratch, like what Portland was able to do with AP. And it's really, I'm really excited to see that. I'm excited for all of them, but if you see the jump in numbers for Portland and Gallatin, even from 2024 to 2025, I would anticipate, you know, once Westmoreland moves that way, you'll see the same jump in growth there too.
I want to also shout out White House. I got the chance to review some of the seminar papers this year, and oh my gosh, these kids are doing incredible work. So it's such an awesome program, and I'd love to see more of the research and seminar. Another just a different topic question: achievement scores. Where do the K through 2 achievement scores come
We'll
from?
have to pull that out. I don't know it from memory, but we can get it for you.
Well, it's 3 through, the achievement's 3
It's 3 through 5.
3 through 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because
They
a
don't
couple of
test in
times
K2.
you said K through 12, and I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
understand where the K through
We're,
second grade came
we're
from.
using internal measures. We're using,
Ames Web.
you know, we're using our assessments from like foundations and other things like that, but not a formal.
Yeah,
state test.
the achievement data would have been 3 through 12.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. That's helpful. The last question I have is, you didn't touch on this, but are we going to hear back from how the valedictorian changes happened or went for Merrill Hyde, and if there are potential to
Yeah,
apply that?
I think that they will be working, Dr. Miller and her team will be working on a curriculum guide. Usually that comes to the board in December or January. If we can get it earlier, we'll get it done, but I think that we would see, you know, and I think the question that they'll have to determine, because they bring, if you look at that team, it's principals, assistant principals, counselors, teachers, parent, you know, everybody comes together to work on that. And I think the question is, you know, is 1 year enough before we make a major change like that, or do we want to watch like one cohort go through, and not a 4-year cohort, but maybe 1 or 2 years to see how it goes. I can tell you just anecdotally from the Merrill Hyde parents that I've talked to and talking to Mr. Frank, I think that an overwhelming majority of parents have told him how relieved they are that their kids are going to be able to breathe, because I think, to pick up Mr. Evans' comment earlier, you know, do think that in Merrill Hyde it becomes an arms race for multiple kids, and they lose sight. Like I know I've heard, like being able to take theater, being able to do a second fine art, being able to be in the marching band, being able to play a sport, being able, I love the way that they crafted that to really build out the fullness of what Merrill Hyde was founded on. I think that's really cool. And I think that that will be something for us to, you know, if you want to take 25 AP classes while you're in high school, then you absolutely should, but you also don't have to if there's something else.
Thank you.
Mr. Holmes, I just had 2 quick questions. Some of the data, it said meeting and exceeding expectations. What is that in reference to? Like, is that the state average?
It's state, yeah, they have cut scores for meeting and exceeding expectations. There's a certain percentage number that you have to meet to be in that category.
Okay. And then, is there, I know like we get our TCAP scores back, and you have the state and the school and your kid and all. Do you have some of the same kind of analysis or data for that as well? I'd be curious to see how those all stack up.
Like breakdown by school?
Yeah.
We can get you that information, yes.
Mr. King?
Yeah, so on the achievement slides, that was K through 12, but it included internal assessments.
It was 3 through 12.
3 through 12, and it included
Tests.
internal.
No, it does not include internal. That's all state data.
That's all state data.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm just a little confused because ELA was 51%, and the data that I pulled off the data download site was it's 1%, 1.6% less.
Yeah, you probably have a different year.
So-
I mean, if you go, I looked on the state report card today and said it's what.
I just looked at it. I just downloaded it.
I mean, I'll take Anna Connor over you. I mean, I think she's really good at this. Sorry.
There's no need to get snarky. I'm just
not.
asking a question. I'm just saying that the information I have says that all grades ELA achievement is at 49.4%. So my question is, what is making up the 1.6%
I'll let them
difference?
answer. I apologize, Mr. King, for my snark.
I can see if Anna can pull it up and just make sure that we can confirm. The achievement data just came out, and then growth is still embargoed, so there's a lot of numbers floating around, but I'll make sure I get you the right achievement score for the 3 through 12
Okay.
and double check that for you. That's no problem at all.
Yeah, and just on that, I mean, I would expect, I mean, no school system is perfect, right? And would you consider this an area that definitely needs more attention?
We always want to get better, no matter the number.
I know, but we're looking at year over year trending at, I mean, year over year, we're not getting ELA achievement scores to 50%. So
I don't understand what you mean by that.
Well, I'm just looking at the scores year over year, and for all grades, we're just below 50%.
Are you looking at singular grades or 3 through 12 as a whole?
Well, this is, I guess, 3 through 8 is, I mean, isn't that
Which is
file
a
3
different
through 8?
metric than is on the screen.
Yeah, the state metric is 3 through 8, is that right?
Well, there's 3 through 12 data because they take an EOC and a TCAP test. So they
Okay.
give us a number.
I think
for
this is
overall.
just ELA. I'm just looking at
It should
ELA,
be
not
in
EOC.
3.8, so you're missing a grade band.
Okay, all right, so, but still, I mean, close to 50% are not meeting the expectations or not, and the Tennessean actually reports that is considered failing the test. So, I mean, how can we
Celebrate growth and getting better? That's what we're doing.
Right, I mean, but I'm just wondering,
So I think in 2009, there was a national study done by the United States Chamber of Commerce that gave Tennessee an F for truth in reporting because we had something like 80, 90% proficiency rates, but they were a joke.
Well, I'm talking,
And
no,
so- hang on.
their report was 58% of Tennessee third graders, the whole state, had failed the test. And so I'm looking at 2025 this year, ours was, third grade was 49.3, or no, 51% failed the test. So,
For this year, ELA?
this year's ELA.
Yeah, third grade was like at 49.7, 49.3. I may be off by the 10th of the number, but
So
also
49.3 were above, or we're at or above.
I just think we're focusing on
So-
different aspects.
Okay, I just want to make sure that this is not just, that this is something that is really getting a lot of attention, that we're really going to push for. I mean, really make an all hands on deck effort
Of
to
course.
get these scores up, at least, because they've really not gone beyond 50% in a long
So
time.
I would point out
So-
that we're in the top 10 of large districts in the state in every almost measurable category. I would point out that a minute ago, what I was saying, 2009, Tennessee's test scores did not align with reality. It was widely reported. We got an F by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for not telling the truth about where our kids were. And at that point, Tennessee, under Governor Bredesen and under Governor Haslam, really drilled down and said, let's give a test that aligns with what success looks like post-high school, the stuff that we spent most of this presentation talking about. And if you look over that time, we put a test in place that began to accurately measure where students were. Is there a reading problem in the United States? Absolutely. Is it something that Tennessee is telling the truth about? There are plenty of studies that show the moves that the state of Tennessee made and the results that are coming out of it through COVID and shutdowns and everything else. 1, staying open. 2, drilling down on foundational literacy, investing in Reading 360, which is emulated around the country now in terms of what's being done nationally. If you look at, there's a lot of data there that shows that Tennessee, Kentucky, a couple other states, Alabama, Mississippi, way outperformed the rest of the country in avoiding learning loss during COVID and recovering faster. I have the opportunity, Ms. Skinner and I are part of a lot of national conversations about literacy across the country. So is it something that we would love to see numbers up around 70, 80%? Absolutely. But is it numbers that we want on a test like some states give that don't accurately measure where kids are? That's meaningless. And I would argue that it has been all hands on deck for years now. We put high quality materials in place. We found strong foundational literacy. We have everything, like if you see an 8-point jump in Course Mojo, almost erasing the gap, the special ed and economically disadvantaged gap. That was with a pilot when Course Mojo was still fully finding and identifying the best place to put the lesson. This year, you're going to see it put at the most rigorous part for 15, 20 minutes. I think we'll see growth similar or higher. If you look at that, what's exciting is you saw schools like a Schaefer that had struggled historically in 6th grade ELA getting a big jump. And then you see a school like Ellis, where we've historically lost growth at the very top quintile, right? And you saw Ellis with a 14% jump. So significant growth across the board. So I would argue if you look at our scores relative, I think with any kind of state test, you have to look at it relative to how other districts are doing. So yes, Williamson is in the high 60s, right? But if you look at where everybody else is, Wilson, Sumner, other counties, like I want to be number one. I want to reel in Williamson and be the absolute best. That's going to take some time. But I think that, you know, the work that we are doing, I would agree that it's all hands on deck, but I would say it's already all hands on deck.
I think, Mr. King, if I can speak to that a little bit. So you are right, our 3rd grade ELA this year was 49.3. The state was 41.7, and not to discount what you're saying, we want to be 100%. I think we have to have some sort of realistic metrics to realize the gaps that we're closing. If they're coming to us 2 and 3 grade bands behind, this is not an excuse, it's just the reality. Giving us some time and space to close those gaps. But some high points is we've got, you know, Merrill Hyde is at 97%. We've got Oakmont at 82% proficiency with ELA. So, and then we got several schools in the 70s and high 60s. So we've got pockets of that growth. Overall, you're exactly right. It is a focus, and we want to continue on that path. I guess my question is, is there curiosities or suggestions on things that you think that we could do to move that needle faster, or that you think would help that rally cry to increase literacy scores?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have a question, one other question that kind of, if you bear with me, maybe it'll get to that. He mentioned COVID, and I was looking at the data, and 2022 third grade scored at 44.8% proficient. That was in 2022, and those were students in 3rd grade that were in kindergarten during COVID. And so and you can look at 2021, there's a major dip in scores. And then, you know, 2022, we've got 3rd grade at 44.8. Fast forward to 2025, our 3rd grade scores are 49.3. Mm-hmm. Now these are students that they started kindergarten in 2022, right? So they are not affected by COVID like the 3rd graders in 2022 were affected, likely, right? So my question is, if COVID was causing the gap in 2022, and we're well beyond COVID now, what is causing the gap today for our 3rd graders that are, you know, for half of our 3rd graders? So that, you know, what is it that's causing the gap today?
I feel like, sorry, Greg.
No, go ahead.
I feel like I wouldn't say that COVID caused the gap in isolation. I would say that society's vastly changed, and I don't know that the gap's not so wide that it's just going to take a minute to close. I don't have an answer for that. I can tell you again that, like, we're pushing curriculum and training teachers and trying to do the pockets of things. So I just don't think it's a fast game. I just think that different kids progress at different rates. And I think that's why seeing it all the way to fruition from high school and seeing our graduation rates and things like that is kind of where you have to hold on. It's hard being in elementary school because they don't get to see the fruits of their labor, because a lot of maturity happens from 3rd grade to 12th grade. So I hear what you're saying, and if I could answer your question, I would be a lot richer than I am right now. And again, I just ask for curiosity and solutions on what you think that we could do better in our classrooms to move that needle faster or more effectively.
I've had a lot of teachers express concern about the Wit and Wisdom curriculum not meeting students' needs. You know, and this is from one principal now, and I get that from a lot of teachers. They tell me and they tell others, but they're afraid to speak out because they're afraid to speak and share those opinions about the curriculum. This principal wrote to me and said our students lack a lot of the skills and knowledge.
Don't want to get into a curriculum debate when we're talking about data. Like, that isn't the point of this presentation. That's ridiculous.
She was asking me about solutions to what could possibly be a solution. This may be one. Maybe we need a new curriculum that's more aligned with state standardized testing. I don't know, or more that meets the needs of our students, maybe. Anyway, this principal wrote, our students lacked a lot of the skills and knowledge needed to be successful with the curriculum. Wisdom, it became obvious that the curriculum was not meeting the needs of the students, and the teachers and the kids were super frustrated with it. We also started to notice gaps in areas between grade levels. Teachers were trying to fill the gaps themselves with various resources, and this was leading to misalignment with grade levels and vertically from grade to grade. Below are some of the things we did to improve scores, and they did, and there's 5 points. I'll share these with you later. I don't want to take up people's time. But they, in many ways, kind of, they went away from the ELA curriculum that we've adopted, and they started implementing their own kind of where students were at, doing their own implementation, bringing in resources, and they were able to achieve some quite a bit of growth after taking those steps. So that might be one thing to consider. Anyway, I just wanted to share that and get some, there were some discrepancies in the numbers. I feel like 49%
The discrepancy was you had
students not
3.8
meeting
data and not 3.12 data.
There was a whole grade being left out, so we just, I
Yeah.
apologize if
Yeah.
I put
But-
K-12, and I think that's what caused the confusion. So it was 312,
Right,
so
and-
that was just my
Well, and
mistake.
let me clarify, because I tested.
I still have the floor. I'm sorry. I still have.
Well, I was answering your question.
Well, okay.
I'm happy to answer your question.
Go ahead. Go
You
ahead.
know,
I'm sorry.
the
Go ahead.
data that you reported is erroneous at 49.3 is grades 3 through 8. The 51.4 in the presentation is for all grade bands. It says all
Okay.
grades, so 3 through 10.
Okay, well,
which is
so
the test set.
51% for 3 through
10.
You said 3 through
Through
10.
English 2.
Okay, and so that means 49% of students are not meeting expectations. So by
48.6.
Okay, yeah. So me personally, and I know a lot of my constituents, citizens, parents, even teachers, don't see that as something that's worth celebrating. To me, they see that as a crisis that needs to really be targeted. So, and here's the deal: I'm pointing out something. You know, when I was teaching, I'd have a teacher evaluation. They'd tell me all the great things I was doing, and then they would tell me, "Here's where you need growth." So what we've heard tonight was all the great things that everybody's been doing, and it is amazing work. All I'm doing is pointing out an area that needs more attention and support. To me, everybody should be on board with that. I don't think that it deserves any criticism. That's something we all should say yes and be honest. This is where we need help. This is where we need to focus our efforts. That's all I'm saying. So I'm not criticizing.
You are absolutely
anybody.
correct.
So
We
that's
obviously
all
want
I'm.
higher reading scores, and I don't think we were celebrating the fact that our kids can't read. We were sharing the data that we have that shows we are growing in a good direction. And to speak to your comment about principals being afraid, I would pride this department and this team on relationships with people, and you just bringing the negative connotation to that is not okay, because we work really hard to build those relationships, and I think we have good ones with all of our principals.
So a couple things real quick. Number one, can you share that email with the rest of the board?
Sure.
From the principal?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Langford, can you explain when we get the test data? How do you review it? And what steps do you take as a team to identify those gaps and put plans in place? Because I know in meetings we've had over the years, as we've identified areas for growth, we brought other programs in, whether it be with, quality of teachers, whether it be specific programs with reading, whether it be social studies, whether it be the low number of AP classes that we've been able to add. Can you walk through the process when you get that data, what you and your team does to, one, analyze it, and then put plans in place to continue to grow as a system?
Yeah, I think that I would say, let me just talk about being, as director of schools, the work that I've seen Ms. Skinner and her team do. I think if you step back before Ms. Skinner was director of instruction, the work that she started with Title, and I want to mention that because it's been run to the whole district. Across the country, there's this myth that poor kids or kids in economically disadvantaged areas can't learn and can't read. And there's another myth that sits behind that their parents don't care. None of that is true. All kids can learn. It's just where they start. Like, I would encourage you to look at the numbers at a school like Westmoreland Elementary or North Sumner Elementary or Oakmont Elementary, and look at where kids come in when they start, and then look at where they leave. And the work that those teachers do every day is amazing. So Ms. Skinner, when she took over title in 2020, during the midst of COVID, two things she emphasized: parent engagement and then parent empowerment. Within 2 years, over half of our title schools were reward schools. Were they in the top 10 in achievement? No, but you know what? We have some of those top 10 achievement schools. So I think, Mr. Daniels, to your question, the thing is, each principal that we have digs into their data immediately. If data is released at 7 p.m., by 7:05, they're digging into it. Over the years, I would say one of the things that's happened over the last couple years is this team that you heard from tonight. I mean, if you think about the people that you have that are helping schools dig into this data, you've got Dr. Jesse Adams, as a multiple reward school principal, elementary and middle school, that moved into a principal support role last year to help. You have Andy Mitchell, multiple year reward school principal at Indian Lake, who helped out at White House Middle for a year when she moved back, and then moved into a principal support role. Adam Cripps, that spent last year working with Portland East and Rucker Stewart, had tremendous gain, tremendous growth at those two schools. So they've moved in. Dr. Hallman spoke earlier. He's moved over to focus on classroom practices and support where his heart is, but he also did a tremendous job supporting middle school. Adam Cripps moves right into that position and takes off and picks up the ball where he left off. Eric Bowman over elementary and title, Gene Hessen before that. Darren Kennedy in high school. Sabrina McClard, multiple year reward school principal over coaching and leadership development. You jump to Anna Connor, our newest member of the supervisory team, is probably the most tremendous, whether she was doing it at Hunter or whether she was doing it as a high school coordinator or whether she was doing it as data supervisor. She takes, Mr. Dennis, to your question, she takes the data that can be very unwieldy because it comes in about a 375,000 line spreadsheet. And she breaks it down within hours to give to schools so they can dig into it. Schools dig into data teams, they ask for help. Ms. Miller, Dr. Miller's coordinators and supervisors go out to help. Ms. Skinner supervises across the board. What I'm excited about is there have been times, as Ms. Daniel mentioned, there have been times where we haven't always said, we've bought into the myth at times about just trying to get special ed kids graduated and things like that. Those days are gone. Exceptional education means that we want exceptional education for every student. And that comes from being very truthful and transparent about the data. We never hide our data, but what we do is talk about what our schools are doing and our principals are doing. Like our principals own this data so significantly that Ms. Skinner and I spent a lot of last year saying, hey, we need to step out of the data a little bit and to look at other things so that, like what Mr. Frank did last year, to say, are we producing good people? We want the smartest, most talented, most exceptional kids, but we also want well-rounded kids. So, Mr. Daniel, that was a long answer to your question, but I mean, I think it's a group effort. It never stops. Like we started already this year, Ms. Skinner's team is halfway through bridge evaluations where they go and meet with every principal in groups of 3. They're breaking down that data. They're talking about what their plan is for next year. In September, we will do a strategic planning or strategic check-in meeting with each group of principals. Ms. Skinner and I will do a mid-year evaluation in November, December. The work will continue in the spring. We'll have a follow-up human resources meeting in the spring, and then we'll roll into, analyzing our benchmarks, doing everything else for TCAPs and EOCs in the spring.
Also in those meetings, principals and their leadership teams develop their own action steps. That is not handed down from the top. They look at their school data, they look at their school population, and they design their improvement plan.
I think something else to add that we don't talk about because we just did achievement because that's the data that's in, is you have to realize too that achievement is where the kid is and you have to grow them. So growth is also important, which will be coming. So like Dr. Langford said, if a student comes to you 3 grade bands behind where they should, that doesn't look great on achievement. But that student, you always talk about the kid that goes from an F to a D. That's a huge thing. The other piece is that, chronic absenteeism is huge. So to speak to Mr. King's point, students are dealing with things, families are dealing with things that are heavy. The social and emotional piece, the anxiety stuff that we're dealing with. Like families are dealing with things. So when you ask a question that seems pretty cut and dry, and I agree with you, 49% is not where we want to be or whatever the percentage is, But there are so many other issues that we're dealing with when you're talking about a whole child. About, are they coming to school? Are they fed when they get to school? Are they safe when they get to school? Are they, are they in mental state, which goes to the TCIS training that we're doing? Because a lot of these children are carrying things across the board that we can't imagine. And that translates to our teachers, and that translates to our leaders as well. So I agree with you 100%. We are not where we are, and I agree with that's not something to be stagnant in. But I do challenge you just a bit to sit in it and see what it would feel like to look at a classroom full of 35 kids that are all coming to you with different things, and you're human too. You had life happen to you on the way in. It's a complicated problem, but it's a beautiful mess that we're in. So I do appreciate the fact that you continue to discern and bring things to light, because we do want to get better. I don't think you can say this one thing, whether it be curriculum or teachers or whatever, is the solution, because it's just going to take a society loving our kids and loving our educators and really digging in. But the chronic absenteeism and the mental health piece that we're in right now is really, really heavy. And that, I think that was heightened by COVID, even if you were or weren't in school, and those things don't go away quickly. I think that's really a real thing to consider as well with our leaders and our teachers and our kids.
Mr. Dan, just to your point, let me just emphasize a couple things. I know we need to move on, stuff, but let's talk about some individual schools, looking at their achievement data, and let's just take third grade, since we've focused so much on that. Benny Bills Elementary, 2 years ago, 2023, 11.9% med exceeded. Last year, first year principal, 37.4. Bethpage Elementary, 2023, 32%, coming out of COVID to 56.3. If we look at an Oakmont Elementary, or even like across the board, you just see this growth. Now, obviously, we've got some that have dropped, but what I love is, and to your point, the principals dig in and they work to get better. But you see, you see consistent growth across the board in these grades, and that's what we're after. I mean, I would wholeheartedly agree that we can always do better, and we want to. But the principals own this pretty significant.
And I would think the other thing is the way we've set up our team with our district level support, our leads in each school, our coaches. When you're looking at numbers for an entire school system, 3 through 12. You're going to have some, special elementary being the largest number of schools in our system. You're going to have some that are exceeding the numbers that you see, and you're going to see some that are below. And I think our staff's done a pretty good job of not just looking at one thing and saying, hey, this is a problem and the way to fix it, but saying, what's working at this school? What's this principal doing? And then trying to learn from those that are doing well and translate that down. And let's be honest, when we talk about kids in schools, you're going to have years where you have a higher caliber of student than you do in previous years. And I think you see that sometimes in the school systems as well. But again, by aggregating it all together and looking for those opportunities to grow and succeed and working together as a team, that quote I think you used about the importance of teamwork on one of the slides is one of the things that makes Sumner County so great. Is when we are struggling in an area, everybody's pulling together to try to find out how can we get better. And it's hard to turn a ship around or to move a number a huge amount in a year or 2 years. It takes time, it takes a plan. And I think the point that was made, when you look at what we're putting out at the end of a high school career versus where they start, and seeing where these kids are right now and knowing that, hey, over the next 7, 8, 9 years, we're going to have these kids earning millions of dollars in scholarships. We're going to have these kids earning hundreds of thousands of dollars in certifications that are going to lead to additional money and salary that they can turn around and invest back into the community. That's the payoff. You don't always see it in third grade and fourth grade and fifth grade just in the scores. If all you're looking at is numbers, I think you have to, as you said, look at the child as a whole and the school as a whole and see where we're improving, and then look to continue to find those areas where we're not where we want to be and plug those gaps. So, Mr. Lacey?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. My daughter, she just took her third grade, I guess last year she took it, and we were actually having IEP classes worrying if she was, going to be able to do good on the test, and she actually made a 4 on her English and her reading, and you know, we were astounded. I mean, it almost made me want to cry. You know, we were really worried and concerned, and she aced it. And I know her teachers were working extremely hard. I mean, above and beyond. She goes to an exceptional school. But, you know, I've actually talked to some of the third grade teachers, and, you know, every kid doesn't have a parent at home that will read with them. I've actually been told by some third grade teachers that some parents tell them that don't send homework home, that's your job. So some of the problem lies with the parents. I think that our teachers work really hard. And I would challenge Mr. King. You know, I've heard a lot of people say that 50% of our kids can't read. That's not true. They can read. And I don't like the way they throw that around. I think a lot of our teachers work exceptionally hard. And a lot of kids come from different homes and they don't have the same, they don't get to start on the same playing field. And I would ask, you know, some of the people that were talking tonight, don't ask a board member his opinion and then try to shut him down if you don't like what he hears or what you hear. But, you know, and I would want to go something else, talk about something else. Can you go to the last slide, please? I think it was with the writing at the end. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It says, we will work together to do what is best for our kids. And I want to challenge our board. You know, we kind of, as the director said, we had an IEP meeting in one of our board meetings. You know, actions speak louder than words. Our kids number one, because we have a CDC special needs class in Westmoreland that doesn't have the proper staff to run the classroom, and that's a fact. So we cut that position so we can add extra positions at central office, and that's my deal. That's how can you cut positions that face students and say that you're for students when you're adding positions at central office. I just say practice what you preach, and I know we all can do that, but.
Thank you. Ms. Bruni?
Dr. Skinner, one of the things that I'm calling you now. One of the things that I think is really important to talk about, which we haven't yet tonight, when it comes to these scores, is that first of all, third grade is the very first time these kids take a test like this, and it has become very high pressure. Do we see gains from 3rd to 12th grade from?
I could give you a better number looking at 3rd to 8th grade because it's the same type test versus
Yep.
TCAP versus EOC.
Great.
We did do a pilot last year with 2nd grade that we made low stakes on purpose just to give like that testing environment feel. We'll see this year looking at those 2nd grade scores from last year to this year if that made a difference. We haven't dug into that data yet, and we'll do that again this year with real clear like don't stress the 2nd graders out. It's just a practice. And we're hoping that prepares them a little more for what that feels like.
Right. And like Mr. Lacey said so eloquently, this is not half of our students can't read. That is so clear. The other thing that I want to point out is we aren't through the ramifications of COVID. Kindergarten this year are COVID babies. The 3rd graders coming into taking this test this year had their fundamental language learning time in isolation and masking. We missed out on social skills, we missed out on facial expressions. A lot of language learning comes from watching your parents make sounds, and our kids are still dealing with that. So the fact that your numbers have continued to rise through students having those challenges is a testament to the work you guys are doing. Not saying that we don't have more to do.
We definitely do.
And I know you know that.
Yeah.
But that is an incredible thing we should be celebrating.
Ms. Stewart?
Yeah, my question is from Dr. Miller. I would just make a point that the suggestions that you were asking Mr. King to maybe come back with, that kind of goes both ways. If you have stuff that we can implement as a board to help you guys, I think that's what we're here for, is to do that. So I would encourage you to also give us feedback as well, if there's something that we can do. Also, the partnership comment that was on here, the school visits that we did, I'm going back to that every time. I know I'm repeating myself terribly, but I encourage each one of us to do that. I had so much fun and learned so many things. And what Megan said about these kids being COVID third graders. They are. That's exactly, I had that in my brain too, but please don't hesitate to ask. And if we can do it, we'll do it. I will. I'll vote yes.
Mr., let me share, let me cue.
David wanted to share something really quick. Is that okay?
Well, first I was just going to share about COVID. I think it is a generational event like nothing that we've experienced in our lifetimes. And so the students that were impacted directly, testing wise in 2001 or 2020, 2021, 22, we saw the impact, but we're going to see that impact for a generation. And it's important to contextualize that. The other thing, being older, 93 was my first year in the classroom. And my experience then is the same as the emails that you got. There are always going to be concerns about curriculum. It's always been that way. No matter what the curriculum is, there are always going to be issues and things that we can improve on. And I know from the middle school principals, we've got a lot of feedback from them, concerns and things that we've worked with them on. So they have shared with us, and I know they've done the same with Dr. Bowman. Like, how can we do this better? What are the things, do we see gaps? How can we make that better for our students? They have been sharing those things, and we've made modifications in how we've delivered that material. So I'm not saying anything about that particular principal because that's a voice that needs to be heard, but I want you to know the principals have been very open with us and shared, hey, we can do this better using this curriculum. I know for my family, Wit and Wisdom has made a difference, a really positive difference. But more than that, our data says it has. The data says it has made a difference, and we've made improvement. And I think that's what we have to rely on the data. That's hard facts. We're going to continue to listen, and we have listened to feedback. And we put those things together. As a building principal for 23 years, teachers would come to me and say, hey, I've got this concern, and I listen to it. I also look at the data. What does the data say? And I filter their concerns and their frustrations with the data to make a better decision for them. And I think the principals in our buildings are doing the same thing. Frustrations will come out, and then we sit back and say, how do we do this better? And so I do think the principals are really working hard to achieve that, and I know we're supporting them in that.
Thank you. Appreciate you all's time. I'll just kind of wrap with this. I'm curious on the AP side, and this is just information I'd love to have. How many freshmen took AP class this year? And I'll be curious what their score was, because you made the comment about, if you can get the freshmen in AP and start learning and seeing what it's like, there's a much better chance they continue to take AP courses throughout their career. I had a freshman that took it. He's an athlete. Not very good at testing, not very good at English. That's one he struggles in, but loves social studies, loves research, loves to learn, and is looking forward to additional AP classes this year. So I'd love to know how many freshmen took an AP class for the first time, and then what kind of scores that they were getting. Because again, I think that sets foundation for success, along with those that are freshmen moving in and taking these CTE programs. So thank you. Appreciate your time.
Mr. Evans, if I could throw out one more thing, because to Ms. Stewart's question about innovation, I think, and Ms. Skinner, don't run off because I want to throw the ball to you. Course Mojo was an innovation that we heard about as part of a national literacy discussion we were on, and they chose to come to Sumner County because of the work that we do and the quality of the work that we do. Do you want to tell them we've got one now? It's called Paloma, and it's really cool because it doesn't just, I mentioned earlier about Ms. Skinner and parent empowerment, not just engagement, but it empowers parents to help with foundational literacy, which is the #1 move to get those third grade numbers up.
No, it's a program that takes our foundational literacy curriculum and builds stories around the letters and strands of letters that they're learning that week. And if they practice the skills that are within this app for 10 minutes 3 times a week, the app builds a story at the end of their practice sessions with them as a character, and they get to choose if they're going to be a dragon or a pirate or a queen or whatever it is, and it writes a story with all the skills they've learned for the week about them and the character that they want to be.
And it also provides support for parents too, doesn't it?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
It's a parent engagement piece. It's pretty cool.
Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda, discussion regarding district cell phone policy. Mr. Johnson.
So this is more of like an open-ended study session agenda item. Like we, technically our current version of the cell phone policy, well, not technically, actually, our current version of the cell phone policy meets state law. I've had several of you express to me that you would have an interest in looking at altering that policy. And so we're just looking for guidance from the board about what kind of data would you like to see? What would you like us to research? How would we like to approach? If we, like, one, is there an interest in looking at doing something further than the existing policy? And if so, what kind of information would you like us to bring to you?
Any comments? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Lacy.
I'd like to ask the director, I read the policy, and our policy and the state's policy. I didn't see a huge difference. Would you recommend a change to our policy?
So, Mr. Lacy, I think it's interesting you said it, because I would say, I think, to piggyback off what Mr. Johnson just said, I think it's something that we need to spend multiple months looking at. I will tell you that Warren County Superintendent, I heard him speak at a conference I went to, or meeting I went to, and he talked about how his board voted to completely ban cell phones against his recommendation. And he said it was the right decision. This is one of the best things we ever did. That they've seen a decrease in discipline, kids are reading, they're talking in the cafeteria. My favorite comment, he says, one boy stopped him and said he didn't know there was a place he could go on the planet where he could have 7.5 hours without his parents being able to text him. And he kind of enjoyed that, that school became a cell-free phone. But, but I think that, there's so many big questions that come here, because I think, you said this earlier, what is the intersection of, we've got to kill this divide between parents and schools where we can start working together again. I think that's one of the tragedies that came out of COVID, was exasperating that divide. And I just, it's funny because sometimes I think our technology listens to us, but I was looking at my LinkedIn earlier, and the first thing that popped up was an article about cell phones, and it says things like, there's a survey of how would you rather spend time with friends, and these are like 3rd and 4th graders. 45% free play in person, 30% organized activity, 25% online activity. But what they're saying is that we're so scared for kids to be outside in unorganized ways that we're prohibiting them from doing what they like, so they find their way onto these. And cell phone usage has dropped, smartphone usage, or smartphone acquisition has dropped from like 15 4 years ago to 11 or 12 now. I was at Beach Elementary the other day, and there was a kid that was going through the fields because he couldn't wear his Apple Watch in class. And, that was a very young elementary age student, and we've got to break that, because we've got to provide a space for kids to do things differently. I know Miss Katie Brown, they have a movie that they showed, or a documentary that they showed last year, sometimes that shows the effect. Some of the early research coming out shows that cell phone usage, unregulated cell phone usage, is more damaging than nicotine. And so I think that we owe it to the families of Sumner County to really dig into this and see what the right answer is. The flip side, I think this is what Mr. Johnson was saying, it's not something that we need to get fast, because there's an implementation cost, like a budgetary cost, but more importantly, we're going to be asking our principals and teachers to implement it, and we want to do it in such a way where we're not asking them to do one more thing. But I think if we can dig in on the parent education and support and community connection, I really feel like everybody in our society knows that this needs to be done. They just need somebody to yank the Band-Aid off and say, we're going to do it. And I think that's a role that we can play, but it's not going to be something, we got to dig in and ask the right questions and hear from the right people. I think it's a really exciting, I know one of the things that came out of my director evaluation was more opportunity for the board to engage in strategic conversations. We've had some really good ones over the last couple months, and I think this is one that's really good for the board to dig in on. And I know Ms. Brown and her team can bring some resources and share, and we can dig into that.
Ms. Brennan?
So I know that this says that cell phones may not be used during school hours. I also know that the actual implementation of that isn't happening. Just from personal experience with my babysitters, like, I know I can text my babysitter and they're gonna get back to me during the school day. Whether or not that's right, it's certainly not the expectation, but I know that it's happening. So I'd be interested in knowing what options we might have for actual enforcement of the policy as it stands right now. I think we all know, like you said, we all know that cell phones are a distraction during the school day. We don't need our kids videoing each other. We don't need people trying to go viral. We don't need distraction from instruction. How have you seen this be applied effectively in other schools? Or are there some innovative ways that you're aware of? I mean, we could all do the homework to find out some of those ways as well. But I'd love to see something come from your group on some options on what you would think would be feasible.
Yeah, and I think we can absolutely do that. And I think that, you know, some counties have taken, you know, really strong stands, like they use the pouches like you see at a comedy show. Or a concert.
the yonder pouches.
And then you hit it with a magnet on the way out. Those districts have seen some pretty significant changes in student behavior, like a big drop in like type 2 behaviors, like where you start to see fights and things like that, because I think it's hard for us to even track that accurately, because what happens is like, I'll just give you an example of an incident I had when I was a principal. A boy's walking down the hallway, he's got his cell phone out. Teacher asks him nicely to put it up. He turns around and says something ugly to her. Then two things. I arrive on the scene and he's escalated, so he cusses at me. So I suspend him for his language. I don't even know that I put the cell phone in the write-up, because what he was in trouble for was the way he responded to adults in the building, not the fact that the cell phone started it. So any number that we give you about behavior connected to cell phones is going to be really conservative. But I think at the same time that if you look at, like, I think one of the most astounding things Warren County does mention, they said that one of their teachers did a study, just a quick study in his classroom. He had every student turn their phone over, and they logged for 5 minutes how many notifications, texts, messages, everything that they got. It was around 50 in 5 minutes. And they were saying, what's that? No, in Tennessee. Other side of Livingston, right around Livingston. But they said that, you know, the data shows that, research shows that every time you get a buzz or whatever, that it's about 20 minutes for you to focus back in. So you think our kids are living a life, you know, and I think Ms. Brown, Dr. Miller mentioned this earlier, our kids don't, you know, we're like, if you went to school and somebody made fun of you or said something ugly to you, I actually think kids are a lot nicer today than kids in the 80s were. But the difference is when you went home, you had a cord that, if you were lucky, had a 9-foot cord. You know, you pretty much talked in the middle of your house, where kids now, they never escape from this. And I think that's one of the big differences. So I think that there's some innovative practices around, and I think we can pull some data from districts that are a year or so ahead of us. There's a national movement that's done a lot of research and provided a lot of resources on going cell phone free. I think we can pull in some of that as well.
I think the one objection as a parent that I've heard from other parents is around safety, wanting to be able to get hold of your child in the case of an emergency. So understanding the policy in regards to that is probably something we should at least talk about.
So what's funny is, this would be Warren County also, he said that he had an SRO on his school board, and he said they had a lot of the safety concerns. And I think that would be, for y'all, if you make this decision, this is one that would be a lot more challenging for y'all to make than it would be for us to implement. Because I think the overwhelming body of principals and teachers would be in favor of it, other than just the managerial aspects. But I think the security, on one hand, is legitimate. I can tell you, you know, I was kind of in it before cell phones. Whenever we had a campus emergency and had to lock doors, the most difficult thing to manage is everybody started calling. The SRO that was on the school board in Warren County pointed out that the number one thing a child needs to do in the event of a mass shooting incident is to be in the safe space with the door locked. I don't know if you've noticed this with your teenagers, they are fairly oblivious to anything going on around them if they're on the phone. The distracted piece, what this SRO says, the distraction piece is way riskier for a child in an emergency than it is to not have physical access to their phone.
Mr. Evans?
Yeah, it's kind of funny reading this, because in 2006, I was a sophomore when the iPods like really got big. The video ones came out, and we were allowed to have them like in September, and by I think December we were not allowed to have them. So I remember that 4 months being really fun. I listened to music every day in my class, working on stuff. But I would say I think it would be cool, like kind of summarize a little bit of that. One, we're in right now. The way our policy is, we're compliant. Yes. So I would love to see. I mean, Warren County is a great example, but I'd probably like to see on both sides of the spectrum, 2 that's working, 2 that's not working, and 2 that are kind of current state. I think if we were able to look at that, because like Warren County is at, I know it's pretty impressive what they've done, but how many students, that's, I would like to see probably, like I said, both things on both sides of the spectrum. I think that will help us be able to come up with a better idea.
Yeah, that's just the one that I've heard.
Yeah.
I think that you would see.
That was on the news. It was on the news.
Yeah, well, and I think too, what you'll see is with us having iPads, there's no real reason, but I will tell you, your average teenager now is really amazingly crafty with these. Like, they have burner phones that they put in a little pouch so they can keep their real phone where, they can still run off their watch while their phone's in the pouch in the front of the room. I mean, Dr. Miller could speak to that better because they did a pretty effective job of shutting down cell phone usage, but I mean, you're not going to 100% shut it down. But, one way you can always tell is when a child leaves a classroom and their parent calls the school before they get to the office. That's always a good sign that they stopped and texted somewhere.
Mr. Lacy?
How do they enforce the policy? I mean, are they taking their phones from them as soon as they get to school? Or?
No, what they did is they gave every kid a pouch. And like the superintendent said, he had a son and a daughter. His daughter brought her pouch every day, got it in her bag, had her phone in it, and immediately after school took it out. His son said, there's no way I'm going to keep up with that all day without losing my phone, so he just left his in his truck. So they left it up to the student to make the decision where they wanted to keep their phone. They had the pouch, but they were responsible for keeping up with the pouch. I would share with you, I think I shared this at the Commission Education Committee meeting last night. You can go into any middle school or high school around the county at any point and find $15,000 in sweatshirts, coats, shoes, everything like that. You will never find a piece of technology. They don't lose that. But I think so that's how they did it. I mean, they did the pouches in high school and middle school. They got they bought these little cabinets off Amazon that they could just put them in and lock them. And we've bought 8,000 of those pouches that you put on the side of the room with numbers on them that you can drop them in. There's a bunch of different ways to do it.
Thank you. I think there's 2 things that I think about. One, I work from home, and I've got about 45 people that report to me. And I've also got all the projects that I've got to try to get done while working with marketing reps, which means I'm also a part-time therapist, right? If you've ever dealt with marketing people. But I've noticed when I shut my phone off, take my watch off, put it to the side, silence it, and give myself 2 to 3 hours just to work on something, I make a lot more progress than when I'm constantly looking at my watch, looking at my phone, looking at a text, because everybody's got an urgency that's emergency, and it's really not. It is to them, but not everybody else. And so, when I look at cell phones and I think about kids in school trying to learn and constantly inundated by a text from their parents or whoever it is, man, it's got to be hard to concentrate. I think the second thing is, those of us that have kids, whether they're in high school or middle school, my boys play travel sports. I know you've got some other, you've got kids, you're involved, with a lot of community projects. And it's amazing how when we go out as a team for a lunch, because we've got a couple of hours in between games or whatever it is, and the kids are at this table and the parents are over here, and you look over and you've got 12 boys or whatever it is, and they're all on their phone and they're texting each other on their phone. You're like you guys are literally right across from each other and you're texting each other. And there's times we said, hey, we're going to take all your phones and grab them, put them at the table. And then they have to, and it's weird because they sit there and they're like, what are we supposed to say to each other? And so, I kind of see both sides. I understand the safety side, but I also see, the challenge it can cause as far as concentration and focus, if they have them on them all day long. And so I think it's a great subject for us to study and look at. And as Mr. Evans said, trying to get some research on not just districts that are doing it or not, but how they've implemented it, what the success has been, what that looks like, and then figuring out a process for how are we going to roll this out. Is it certain age groups? Is it certain classes? Is it high school versus middle school? Because they do have technology, they do have the iPad, so it's not like they don't have technology in front of them that they can use. But I think it's a great conversation for us as a board to have. So, Mr. Lancaster.
Yeah, I got a teenage daughter, 2 of them, and I hear a concern on, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of data on the negative effects of cell phones, and hey, I can promise you mine stays on it way more than she should. But at the same time, looking at my high school daughter and my middle school daughter, and the friends and interactions that they have with other students versus where I was at their age, there's also good aspects. And when I say good aspects, like my kids interact with more students than I did. And I worry, not necessarily worry, but I wonder if what we will see is, hey, all these states are going to a, you know, banning cell phones and or try to curb or curtail the usage of cell phones. If we see some of the stuff that I would say were more 90s.
More of a responsible use.
Yeah, 90s issues where, hey, I didn't talk to that kid because I didn't think I had anything in common, or I didn't know of a way like the cell phone is an icebreaker in a way. Like kids are able, like, hey, I'll message you or talk to you or whatever on this that we just didn't have. And I know that might come off as weird, but like I know there's easy ways to show all the negatives to it. But I just know from as a dad watching my kids and how they interact with other kids, and when I see them in groups of people and their peers, and I'm like, good Lord, how do you know this person? How do you know this person? Well, I talk to them on this, or I talk to them on that, or I talk to them on that.
Yeah, I think that's very valid.
I mean, there's just there is a balance. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that there's not, but it's very different. You know, I went to school, much smaller school, but there's some kids I just never interacted with. If I didn't have a class with them, I didn't have a this, what, that, or whatever, I might not ever talk to them. And like, I'm sure there's still that in play, but I think what I'm seeing from my kids is like that base of interaction among their peers is a huge increase from where we were.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think responsive use with, I mentioned earlier I was in a 6th grade classroom the other day, and every kid in the class already knew what AI was and was using it in some capacity already. Like, I do think that it's not just the negative to say we're going to limit this usage, but also to say what's the positive for, like, how do we, if we step back and get over our addiction a little bit, how do we responsibly use technology?
And that's really where I'm like it's easy to go out there and find all the negative aspects of anything that you want to find the negative aspects, but there's also some positive. I mean, great. There's things I hate about them, and I would love for my kids not to, be on them as much as they are sometimes. But at the same time, I do worry, like, are there kids that would be very negatively impacted by it from the standpoint of like, hey,
there's social.
Yeah. So that's my one thought on it. The other thought is, I think we would definitely have some parent issues to overcome. It's as somebody like who again works from home. There's times when, like, I tell my wife, like, yeah, I'm gonna pick up the kids today, and then I get a meeting that I can't get out of, and like, I mean, there's times I'm in a meeting in pickup line, and there's times that I'm like, well, heck, I can't, because I'm actually, it's hard to present from a cell phone.
Yeah.
And the meeting that is supposed to go from 1 to 2 is, at 2:45 is still just going just as strong as it was. And there's been times when I'm like, hey, I got to go pick up my kid, deal with it. But there's other times when you just can't. And the ability to pick up my phone and text my daughter and say, hey, you got to ride home with so and so, because I already texted her mom. And so there's tons of that that's got to be considered too. Again,
then you worry about, does everybody run to their car to get their phone and don't pay attention in the parking lot? They're pulling out.
Exactly. I had that
So,
same thing, because
yeah.
if you leave Beach High School or any of the beach area at 2:30 to 3 o'clock, the traffic is already horrible, and the thought of 500 kids.
Yeah, there's nothing more dangerous.
Just got their cell phone out.
It's by the grace of God that at 3:15 every day, there's not more rear-end collisions.
Yep. Thank you, and I think this is again, as I said, I think this is great to talk about. We've got about 30 minutes, give me 1 second. We've got about 30 minutes. I know we've got this other policy, so I'm gonna jump to you, and then when you wrap, I'll move on to the next.
I was just asking, is our current policy effective? Because I was reading our current policy, and it has to be in their purse, backpack, put away, turned off. I mean, is that an issue now currently, and how would, say, putting it in a pouch at the classroom door be any different?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to, I think, Mr. Johnson mentioned already going slower, because I would say, to Mr. Evans' point, buy-in of school personnel and parents is going to be the biggest piece, because what you have right now is, I would say the number one texter of kids at school is probably parents. And, so, I mean, it would require, I think that's going to be for it to be successful. Teenagers, I would say, have always lived to try to break the rules of an adult. It's one of the joys of high school, I think. But, you get a pouch, somebody's going to have a burner phone. You're going to tell you, so I mean, like, I think the thing is, what's an appropriate level of discipline? Because we also don't want to be suspending kids or sending them to R.T. Fisher over cell phone usage, but that's going to require a lot of conversation between the parent. Because at a certain point, it's not about cell phone, it's about them being defiant and learning how to work and live in society. Because one day they're going to go to a job, and somebody might say, I'm going to put your phone down while you're doing this. Because, so I think it's just, I think to pick up off Mr. Lancaster, I think it's one of the things that we need to work on is like, yes, we want to probably remove it more than it currently is, but then how do we teach responsive use so we get away from the things like, hey, I'm going to film Jeremy while he's eating lunch, then I'm going to send it to all my friends so that we don't just go from saying something to each other where we end up fighting out back or something. And then somebody else films that and sends that,
Is our policy strictly enforced, or are they using their phones at lunch or in between classes?
I think it's probably, I would say it's probably like dress code was prior to our dress code policy. It's kind of all over the place. I think a lot of schools have tried to do things like, say, you can use them in the cafeteria or something like that. Give kids an opportunity to use them to try to restrict it in class. But they're wily, they're good at it.
All right, next item on the agenda, discussion regarding student board representative. Ms. Brittany?
Yeah, so I'm passing out a couple of things I put together for this. I'm super excited about this new law. I love getting student interaction. So I put together some thoughts around what a student advisory committee could look like. So if you look at the guidelines and considerations for a student advisory committee that I just passed you, essentially I'm proposing that we take a look at having one student per high school on a student advisory committee that would meet in the week between our study session and our voting session. We'd ask those students to review the study session video before their meeting, come to the meeting with thoughts, ideas, etc. on the topics that were covered that month, create a report that would be delivered to the board with their feedback and input that they created in that meeting and with feedback from their student peers. And twice a school year, they would come and do a full report at the board. It would take work on all of our parts to do this, and so I've got some guidelines in here on how that would, what would be needed. I think we would need a faculty advisor for the student advisory committee and a board member who would be willing to advise at those meetings as well. We probably need to come up with some ways to do this virtually so that students this could be after school and they could virtually attend from their individual schools. But this was just a starting point for us to tear up, something for you to hate and tear apart, and we can potentially work through. I also put together a charter that would represent what this student advisory committee would be for, how it would be composed, etc. I love the idea, especially of our juniors and seniors getting more involved from a civic perspective. They all have really strong, great opinions, and if we can coach and guide them into providing those in a capacity that's a little more formal, I think we could get some really great ideas.
Thank you. Two quick questions before I jump to Mr. Evans and Mr. Lacy. Mr. Lacy, did you have a question about it too? Or, okay, I just want to make sure. Number one, the Student Advisory Committee, based on the state law that was passed, would that Student Advisory Committee meet the requirements of that law?
Yes, so the law says that you can either pick one student representative that sits in this meeting and would be a non-voting participant in the debate, or you can form a student advisory committee that would then serve sort of as a committee of the board.
Awesome. Second question is there a date by which you have to have this advisory committee or student representative participating in board functions?
So if everybody look at board docs, I actually linked the law in there so everybody could see it. Current state law, it's SB 161. So the act took effect July 1, 2025, but it does not necessarily give us a deadline on. I don't see anything that says a specific deadline. Created advisory group on or before July 1, 2025.
All right.
So as soon as possible.
Okay, yeah. I do think it's a little bit hard to say it takes effect July 1st when school's out, and then, by the way, we're going to hold you accountable for that, a month later. But that's, what state law does. Mr. Evans.
Yeah, super on board with this. I was involved with student council in high school, all through college. We have I just think about it. I had 3 students work for me last year, Brayden Cole from Beach, Houston Hughes from HHS, and Walker Smith from Merrill Hyde, and they were all involved in student council. And I just think about what this would have provided for them with their high school experience, also preparing them for college and life after high school. So supportive of it. One thing I would ask is that, and this might be a little controversial, but I think this would help these students too. I think we should also include a student from R.T. Fisher and E.B. Wilson, because I think we talk about we give them the expectation when they go into the real world, they're going to be around different people with different backgrounds and experiences. And so I know there might be some provisions that we have to do there, but I do think that we include a student from each of those representations, because I think that they also could bring something valuable that our students in a normal setting do not deal with on a daily basis. So that would be my addition would be that we do include them as well. One thing I would like to add is that if part of the participation in the student advisory committee is that they go to the SCOPE conference in the spring, which is the TSBA Student Committee on Public Education conference. So I would ask that to be involved in the student advisory committee, they also we provide them the chance to go to the SCOPE conference in the spring next year.
Awesome. Yeah, and one thing I just want to mention is as we discussed with the first policy we discussed, this is a starting point. So if you've got feedback, suggestions, we might not have all the answers tonight, but if you've got thoughts on how we put this together, we're going to have to, build out a policy of some kind to make sure that we've got, what state law requires. But, tonight's not necessarily the night where we have to say, yes, this is what we're doing. But thank you, Ms. Brittany, for bringing up the suggestion. Mr. King?
Yeah, no, this was something I was thinking about, having one student from each high school come and be on, I guess, an advisory committee, a student advisory committee just like this. But a friend of mine is on the board in Wilson County, and that's what they do. And we were talking about that, and they've actually been doing this where each month they have one representative and they do a rotation. So it's from each high school come and give a report to the school board. On whatever it is, bullying, vaping, it's, their perspective, or just giving the board an idea of what's happening in their world. Of course, they're free to leave after their report, So I don't know if we wanted to, I don't know if we want to require them to have to stay at a meeting. And so that one question I have about this is, so when would they have to come to the school board? So I know it says your presentation at school board study session twice a year, or are you thinking of having somebody every meeting?
No, I thought that they would need to provide a report each meeting, but that they would only present twice a year. Part of that is, like you just said, these meetings can go kind of late, and I don't want teens driving home at 9. I'm sure they're driving home from sports at 9, but like from a safety perspective, I think if we front loaded their report twice a year and they were able to present for us, I think that would kind of create the interaction. I also love the idea of us alternating who's the liaison each month, so we have an opportunity to hear from them directly. But yeah, I thought a report for every meeting, and then it's a big commitment, and then a twice a year here.
Cool. All right. Well, I like that. Thank you.
Anything else? Ms. Hayes?
Chairman, thank you. Remind me, Dr. Langford, when you were Chief Academic Officer, you formed a group of students.
Actually, Dr. Alexander did.
You did it. I remember, and then
I've been sending them text right now.
Yes, okay, because then we would get feedback from them, things that they would like to see us address and implement.
Yeah, it was pre-2020, 2020
Yeah.
kind of.
Yes,
Let me just say, we weren't going to want to screen some of that before we put it on camera because they were very pointed and direct,
Yes, they were.
and some things that they shared in here.
We actually hired 2 of them as teachers this
Yeah,
year. So-
that's
yeah,
awesome.
really cool.
So that went on for about 2 or 3 years, right, before the COVID, and that caused.
And Ms. Brown has done a student group that's engaged in connecting students across the county. Ms. Brenda, you're absolutely right about driving. My daughter did Leadership Sumner, and they came to Gallatin a lot. And that, those reflectors when you're turning to come up here, my daughter hit one every time she came here.
Oh my. This issue of the TSBA with laws that have come out of the legislature. So in reading this with the student school board member, Public Charter 359, in italics, so this says school boards are not required to have a student school board member. And this new law does not affect districts that already have student school board members. So is this like they're encouraging? I think it's a great idea. So, and Megan, great work.
Mr. Johnson?
But, so the law, you're gonna answer this for me, Chairman.
Yes, but wait.
You answer.
So I did leave out one other option. One other option is your policy can be that we do not have a student school board member. You have to have a policy that determines whether you have a student school board member, student advisory committee, or you can choose not to have a student school board member. So just to clarify, sorry, left that option out.
Well, when you were talking about a date or a deadline, somebody asked about that, I wondered, because it reminded me as I read this, did this law then require us to have this and to meet it by a deadline, so we don't?
I would strongly encourage you not to do a policy where there's just one.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So thank you for the clarification.
All right. Next item on the
Sure.
agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Lacy.
I just want to ask one question. I know on the things that the student board member cannot participate in, would like a board retreat that say is off campus, or say we're at the TSBA office in Nashville, would we want the students to come to something like that if it's like a board retreat?
I think we can.
That's something
I think we can
to think
determine
about.
that as we put the policy together. Thank you.
Yeah, I think student voice is great for every decision we make.
All right, next item on the agenda, discussion or action regarding policy 5.2, non-tenure and tenure prior to first reading. Johnson?
This is just a recommended change to update for state law. And then while I've got the mic, I will also talk about the next two. The next two is just study session appearance. We voted on these last board meeting. This is their study session appearance prior to second reading. So if anybody's got any questions, Mr. Ott is here for 5200 and I'm here for the other two.
Mr. King?
Yeah, so I was just noticing the change. So this is really about pertaining to.
Which policy are you, because I think we just talked about 3, are you?
Oh, I'm talking about the non-tenure,
Okay.
tenure policy.
I just want to make sure they
And which
understood
one are
which
we
one we
on?
were talking about. Yeah, no, we're on that, but
Okay.
Mr. Johnson had said, I'll just mention the other two as well. So I just wanted to clarify which policy you were asking questions about.
Yeah, so it's 5.2
Okay.
tenure. So this is basically about dismissing somebody, or not dismissing, but non-renewal in I guess in terms of 200-day versus 240 days. Is that state law? Did state law
260
recommend
days.
that? What's that?
260 days.
Oh, 260? Okay. Okay, it says beyond 200 days. So I'm just curious, prior to this new revision here, so prior to this, a non-tenured teacher whose contract is not renewed, they would have to have their notice 5 days after the last 180 day, I guess on day 185, is that correct? So they would have to, so if they were a 260 day non-tenured employee, they would have had to have been notified of non-renewal 5 days after the last instructional day. So that'd be day 185, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so this is just cleaning that up? Is that all?
It's also allowing some language in there that if you have 260-day
Okay.
certificated employees, that you don't have to give them notice at that mark that a normal in class or in school teacher would get.
Okay, so if you were a non-tenured teacher, you couldn't be dismissed on date, according to this, our old policy, or the policy as it was, you couldn't be dismissed or non-renewed on day 250, right? It had to be at 185, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just one clarification. So, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Any questions about policy 43012, middle school athletics, prior to second reading? I think this just changed one
Start the season up by a week.
one change so that they could play tonight.
They are playing tonight.
They are playing tonight. Just so you know, home team won tonight up here, field. Downside is we weren't the home team because we had to move our game last year. So I might have been using it. So I might have been getting updates. I will mention just the Schaefer quarterback was injured, taken off by an ambulance a little bit earlier tonight. So just keep him and his family in your prayers. So. And then last item, discussion or action regarding policy 5.307, physical assault leave prior to second reading. Comments, questions? All right. Seeing none, meeting adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry,
Let's
Mr.
say
Evans.
motion to moment of silence for the kid from Schaefer.
Yes.
From Schaefer right now.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Take a moment of silence real quick. Thank you. Thank you. I will say that I did hear he was moving, so it was a neck brace he was moving. So, hopefully it's not serious, more just checking on. But anyway, thank you guys. Obviously we're getting into football season and stuff happens, but let's just kind of remember these athletes and be grateful. We've got a great trainer team and an EMS staff that responds quickly to make sure we take care of our athletes. So that meeting adjourned. Thank you.